Hey guys, tonight we're traveling back, way back, before grocery stores, before agriculture, before anyone had even thought to ask whether gluten was bad for you. We're talking about the Paleolithic era, when dinner wasn't delivered to your door, it was hiding in a bush, and it probably wanted to kill you first. Before we begin, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what we're doing here. And drop a comment letting me know where you're listening from and what time it is there. I always love seeing who's joining us from around the world at all hours of the night. Now, get comfortable, dim those lights, maybe grab some water, ironically, because you're about to learn just how hard it was to stay hydrated 30,000 years ago. Let's ease into this together. You've probably heard about the paleo diet, the one where people eat like cavemen supposedly did. Lots of meat, nuts, berries, no processed food, no grains, no dairy. It sounds primal, natural, healthy, even. Influencers swear by it. Your gym buddy won't shut up about it. And sure, maybe you've lost weight on it or felt great for a few weeks. But here's the thing. The actual caveman diet, the real one our ancestors survived on, you wouldn't last a day. Not because you're weak, but because everything about how they ate, what they ate, when they ate, and why they ate would break you mentally, physically, and probably spiritually. So tonight, we're going to walk through a day in the dietary life of a Paleolithic human. And I promise you, by the end of this, you'll never look at your refrigerator the same way again. Let's begin. Congratulations, you've just woken up in the Paleolithic era. The good news is, you're alive. The bad news is, you're starving. And that's not a dramatic exaggeration. That's just Tuesday. Your stomach is empty. Completely empty. It has been for maybe 12 hours, maybe 18, possibly longer. You don't actually remember the last time you ate because there's no clock, no meal schedule, and absolutely no guarantee that you'll eat today either. Welcome to intermittent fasting, caveman edition. Except nobody's doing it for Instagram. You're doing it because food is a question mark, not a given. Here's what modern humans don't understand. Hunger wasn't an emergency back then. It was baseline. It was the default setting. You didn't wake up and think, what's for breakfast? You woke up and thought, will there be breakfast? And the answer was usually, maybe, if you're lucky, after several hours of exhausting labor, assuming nothing tries to eat you first. There's no pantry. No meal prep containers in the fridge, no granola bars hidden in your bag. Nothing. The concept of stored food doesn't really exist yet, not in any meaningful way. Sure, maybe your group has some dried meat stashed somewhere if you were smart and the weather cooperated, but it's not enough. It's never enough. And it definitely doesn't last. So, you wake up hungry, you go to sleep hungry, you live hungry. Your body has adapted to this. It has to, because in the Paleolithic, food scarcity isn't a diet trend or a wellness experiment. It's reality. And your biology has spent hundreds of thousands of years learning how to function on empty. Let's talk about what that actually means. When you don't eat for an extended period, your body shifts into a different metabolic mode. It starts breaking down fat stores for energy, producing molecules called ketones that your brain can use as fuel instead of glucose. This process, called ketosis, is why you're not just collapsing in a heap after missing one meal. Your ancestors were basically in and out of ketosis constantly. It wasn't a choice. It was survival. But here's the thing modern paleo enthusiasts don't tell you. It feels terrible at first. If you've ever tried fasting or skipping meals, You know that initial phase, the headache, the irritability, the obsessive thoughts about food, the way your stomach feels like it's trying to digest itself. Now imagine that's just how life is. No end date, no cheat day, no breaking your fast with a carefully crafted smoothie bowl. Your body would eventually adapt, sure. After days and weeks of this, the acute discomfort fades, your energy stabilizes. Your brain gets efficient at running on ketones. You stop thinking about food every 30 seconds, but you never stop being hungry. Hunger becomes this low-level hum in the background of everything you do. It's there when you wake up. It's there when you're gathering firewood. It's there when you're trying to sleep. And the psychological weight of it, that's what breaks people. Because it's not just physical hunger. It's the uncertainty, the not knowing. In the modern world, even if you're broke, even if you're struggling, you generally know where your next meal is coming from. A convenience store, a food bank, a friend's house, something. But 30,000 years ago, you have no idea. You might find food in an hour, you might not find it for 3 days, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it except keep looking. This is why our brains are wired the way they are around food. Why we crave high-calorie, high-fat foods. Why we overeat when food is abundant. Why the sight of a loaded dinner table triggers something deep and primal in us. Because for the vast majority of human history, food was the exception, not the rule. Scarcity was normal. Abundance was a rare and precious gift that you took full advantage of because you had no idea when it would happen again. So when you wake up in the Paleolithic, there's no breakfast waiting, there's no coffee brewing, there's no routine, there's just you, your empty stomach, and the knowledge that if you want to eat today, you're going to have to earn it. And earning it means hours of physical labor, risk, and quite possibly failure. Think about that for a second. Every single calorie you consume today required someone, probably you, to track it, chase it, dig it up, or fight for it. No delivery apps, no drive-thrus, no vending machines, just effort, danger, and hope. And here's the kicker. You can't just opt out. You can't decide you're too tired today and order takeout. You can't skip the hunt because you're not feeling it. Because if you don't find food, you don't eat. And if you don't eat, you get weaker. And if you get weaker, you're less likely to successfully find food tomorrow. It's a brutal feedback loop, and it doesn't care about your feelings. So, yeah, you're waking up starving, and that's normal. That's just how it is. Your body is screaming for calories, your brain is foggy, and your only option is to get up and start searching. No breakfast in bed. No leisurely morning routine. Just hunger, and the endless, exhausting work of trying to make it go away. And the truth is, you probably won't succeed until well into the afternoon, if at all. So you've dragged yourself upright, stomach growling, head pounding, ready to make yourself some breakfast. Except, here's the problem. There's nowhere to make it, because kitchens don't exist yet. And neither does anything even remotely resembling one. No counters, no cabinets, no sink, no stove, no oven, no microwave, no toaster, no blender, no nothing. You're standing in a cave or a crude shelter made of branches and animal skins, and the only thing that even vaguely qualifies as a food preparation area is a flat rock near the fire pit. If you're lucky, if you even have a fire going, which you probably don't, because fire is hard and we'll get to that nightmare later. But let's talk about what you really don't have. storage. There is no pantry, no cupboard full of canned goods, no refrigerator humming in the corner, preserving your leftovers and keeping your milk fresh. Because refrigeration won't be invented for another 30,000 years, and even basic food preservation techniques like salting and smoking are either non-existent or extremely limited. This means everything you eat has to be fresh. And by fresh, I mean you either just killed it, just picked it, or just dug it out of the ground within the last few hours. Because if you didn't, it's already going bad. Meat spoils in hours without refrigeration, especially in warm climates. Berries ferment. Roots dry out or rot. Fish? Forget about it. You've got maybe half a day before it's a writhing mass of bacteria and flies. So the concept of leftovers, that beautiful modern invention where you cook once and eat twice, doesn't exist. Every single meal is a fresh endeavor. You can't meal prep on Sunday for the whole week. You can't cook a big pot of stew and reheat it for days. You eat what you find today, and tomorrow you start over from scratch. It's exhausting just thinking about it. And seasonal eating? That trendy thing where people brag about only consuming locally sourced, in-season produce? In the Paleolithic, that's not a choice. That's the law. The only law. If blueberries aren't in season, you're not eating blueberries. If the salmon aren't running, you're not eating salmon. If it's winter and nothing is growing, well, you're eating whatever didn't freeze to death or whatever you managed to preserve, which again isn't much. You don't get to walk into a grocery store in January and buy strawberries flown in from Chile. You don't get tropical fruit in a temperate climate. You don't get variety. You get what's available within walking distance right now, and that's it. Some months, that's plenty. Other months, that's almost nothing, and you have no control over it whatsoever. Let's talk about the actual eating experience, because that's equally bleak. You don't have plates, you don't have bowls, you don't have forks, knives, or spoons. Utensils are mostly sticks, sharp rocks, or your hands, probably your hands. You're eating directly off the bone, scooping food with your fingers, tearing meat with your teeth like the apex predator you're desperately trying to be. There's no table, no chairs. You're squatting on the ground or sitting on a rock, hunched over your food, trying to eat quickly before someone else decides they want your portion or before flies descend like a biblical plague, because they will. Oh, they absolutely will. Insects are everywhere, and they're very interested in your meal. You'll be swatting them away between bites, probably eating a few by accident. Extra protein? You're welcome. And dining etiquette? Manners? Forget it. You're in survival mode. If you manage to secure food, you're eating it as fast as possible because there's no guarantee when the next meal is coming. You're not savoring flavors. You're not doing a wine pairing. You're shoveling calories into your face with the urgency of someone who knows that hunger is always one bad day away. Here's another fun detail. You can't just pop down to the store when you run out of something. Out of salt? Too bad. There is no salt unless you live near the ocean and know how to extract it, which is labor-intensive and time-consuming. Out of oil for cooking? There is no oil. You're using animal fat if you're lucky, and if you're not, you're eating everything dry and unseasoned. Spices, herbs, seasoning of any kind. Maybe if you stumble across wild garlic or some bitter leaves that don't kill you. But the complex flavors we take for granted, the ones that make food enjoyable and not just functional, those don't exist in your world. Food tastes like whatever it is. Meat tastes like meat. Roots taste like dirt. Berries taste like berries, if you're lucky enough to find the sweet ones and not the ones that make your mouth numb. This is what people don't understand about the paleo diet. They think it's about eating clean, unprocessed food, and sure, technically it is, but they're eating unprocessed food that's been cultivated, bred, and selected over thousands of years to be palatable. They're adding sea salt and olive oil and lemon juice. They're using metal knives and ceramic plates and temperature-controlled ovens. Real Paleolithic eating is none of that. It's raw or barely cooked. It's unseasoned. It's whatever you could find that day, eaten off a rock with your hands, surrounded by insects, with no idea when you'll eat again. It's not a lifestyle choice, it's survival. And survival, it turns out, tastes pretty terrible most of the time. The refrigerator alone has probably saved more lives than any other invention in human history by preventing food poisoning and allowing us to store nutrition for later. But your Paleolithic ancestors didn't have that luxury. They had to find food and eat it immediately, every single day, without fail, or die trying. So when you wake up hungry in the Stone Age, you're not walking into a kitchen, you're walking into nothing. Just empty space, empty hands, and the growing realization that if you want to eat today, you're going to have to go out there and make it happen from scratch. And step one of that process? Finding water. Because before you can even think about food, you need to not die of dehydration first. All right, you're awake, you're starving, and your mouth tastes like something died in it. Which, to be fair, something probably did. A bug, maybe. Or just the general accumulation of bacteria that comes from never brushing your teeth. But before you can even think about finding food, you need to solve a more immediate problem. You're thirsty, desperately thirsty, and finding safe water is about to become the most important thing you do all day. Here's what modern humans take for granted: turning on a tap, filling a glass, drinking clean, filtered, temperature-controlled water whenever you want. You probably did it this morning without thinking twice. Maybe you're doing it right now while listening to this. That simple act, that effortless hydration, is a luxury your Paleolithic ancestors would have killed for. Literally. Because in the Stone Age, water isn't something you have, it's something you find. And finding it takes time, energy, and a concerning amount of luck. You can't just walk to the kitchen and pour yourself a drink. You have to go outside, locate the nearest water source, and hope that it's not too far away, not dried up, and not already occupied by something with bigger teeth than you. Let's say you're fortunate and there's a stream or river within a reasonable distance, maybe half an hour's walk. You make your way there, already exhausted because you haven't eaten. Your muscles are stiff from sleeping on the ground, and your body is running on fumes. You reach the water, and it looks beautiful, clear, flowing, perfect. You're about to drink your fill, except here's the problem. That water isn't clean, not even close. You can't see it because microorganisms are invisible to the naked eye. But that pristine-looking stream is absolutely teeming with bacteria, parasites, and pathogens that would love nothing more than to take up residence in your intestines. We're talking E. coli, Giardia, Cryptosporidium, various worms, and a whole festival of microscopic horrors that will make the next few days of your life very, very unpleasant. But you don't know that. You can't know that. Germ theory won't be discovered for another 30,000 years. So you drink, you cup your hands, dip them in the water, and you drink deeply because you're dehydrated and your body is screaming for fluids. And it tastes fine. Maybe a little earthy, a little strange, but fine. You feel better almost immediately. Fast forward 6 to 12 hours, your stomach starts cramping, then the nausea hits, then the diarrhea. Congratulations, you've just contracted a waterborne illness, and there's no medicine, no doctor, no urgent care clinic. There's just you, your increasingly angry digestive system, and the cruel irony that diarrhea dehydrates you even more, which means you need to drink more water, which means more exposure to the same parasites that got you sick in the first place. It's a vicious cycle, and it kills people regularly. Dehydration is no joke. Your body is roughly 60% water, and you're constantly losing it through sweat, urine, and just breathing. In a temperate climate, you need about 2 to 3 liters per day just to maintain basic function. In a hot climate, or if you're doing physical labor, which you definitely are because survival is exhausting, you need more, much more. And if you don't get it, things go bad quickly. First, you get thirsty. Obvious enough. Then comes the headache, the dry mouth, the fatigue. Your body starts rationing water, prioritizing vital organs. Your brain, which is about 73% water, starts to struggle. You get dizzy. Your thinking gets foggy. You make poor decisions, which in a survival situation can be fatal. Can't remember where the good water source is. Can't focus on tracking prey. Can't coordinate with your group. As dehydration progresses, your heart rate increases because your blood volume is dropping. Your body temperature regulation fails. You stop sweating, which means you can't cool down, which means heat stroke becomes a very real threat. Your kidneys start shutting down. Eventually, if you don't get water, you die, and it doesn't take long. 3 to 5 days without water, and that's it. Game over. So water isn't optional. It's not something you get around to when you feel like it. It's the first priority, every single day. Before food, before shelter, before anything else. And the energy cost of securing it is enormous. You have to walk to the source. You have to assess whether it's safe, which you can't actually do accurately, so you're just guessing. You have to drink enough to stay hydrated, and then you have to do it all again tomorrow. Some Paleolithic groups got smart about this. They learned to recognize which water sources were safer. Moving water is generally better than stagnant water. Springs are better than puddles. Water that animals are drinking from without dying is probably okay. Emphasis on probably. But it's all still a gamble. Every single drink is a roll of the dice. And in winter, forget it. Water sources freeze. You're eating snow, which takes energy to melt in your mouth and doesn't hydrate you as efficiently as liquid water. Or you're breaking through ice to get to streams, which is cold, dangerous, and exhausting. Or you're walking miles to find a source that hasn't frozen solid, burning precious calories you don't have just to avoid dying of thirst. Here's the psychological weight of it. In the modern world, we worry about whether our water is filtered enough, whether it has too much fluoride, whether we should be drinking alkaline water or mineral water or whatever the latest trend is. In the Paleolithic, the worry is much simpler and much more terrifying. Will this water kill me? Not eventually, not in some abstract long-term way, but in the next 48 hours. And you never really know the answer until it's too late. This is why early human settlements formed near reliable water sources. Rivers, lakes, springs. Not because the view was nice, but because water was life, literal life. The difference between thriving and dying, and even then, even with a nearby source, you still had to make the trip every single day. still had to carry it back if you had any way to carry it, which you probably didn't, still had to risk contamination with every sip. So yeah, you wake up thirsty in the Stone Age, and quenching that thirst isn't a matter of convenience. It's a matter of life and death, wrapped in uncertainty, coated in risk, and requiring more effort than you've probably expended on anything all week. You'll spend the first hour or more of your day just trying to hydrate, and even then, you're never quite sure if you've just poisoned yourself in the process. But you've done it. You've found water. You've drunk your fill, for better or worse. Now, with your thirst temporarily satisfied and your stomach still achingly empty, it's time to address the food situation. And that starts with foraging, which sounds peaceful and Instagram-worthy until you realize that most of what you'll find is either inedible, poisonous, or so calorically insignificant that you'll burn more energy looking for it than you'll gain from eating it. You've hydrated, barely, and now your stomach is making sounds that could wake the dead. Time for breakfast. Except breakfast isn't a meal, it's a scavenger hunt. And the prizes are mostly disappointing, occasionally toxic, and rarely worth the effort you're about to expend finding them. Welcome to foraging, the Paleolithic version of grocery shopping, except instead of aisles and price tags, you've got forests, fields, and a whole lot of trial and error. And by trial and error, I mean people died figuring out which plants were safe to eat. Many people, your ancestors learned through tragedy, and now you're benefiting from their fatal mistakes. Lucky you. Let's start with berries, because that's what everyone thinks of when they imagine Paleolithic foraging. Cute little berries, nature's candy, right? Sure, if you can find them, if they're in season, if the birds haven't eaten them all already, and if they're actually the edible kind and not the kind that will make your throat swell shut or send you into convulsions. Here's the thing about wild berries. They're tiny. We're talking about the wild ancestors of modern cultivated fruits, and they're nothing like what you buy at the store. A wild strawberry is about the size of your pinky fingernail. A wild blueberry is even smaller. You'd need to eat hundreds of them to get any meaningful calories, and finding hundreds of them takes hours of searching, bending, picking, and competing with every other creature that also thinks berries are a great idea. So you're crawling through bushes, getting scratched by thorns, bitten by insects, all for a handful of berries that might give you 100 calories if you're lucky, and that's assuming they're ripe. Unripe berries are bitter, hard, and can give you a stomachache. Overripe berries are mushy, fermented, and might get you slightly drunk, which sounds fun until you remember that being impaired in a survival situation is a terrible idea. Okay, berries are hard. What about roots and tubers? Things like wild carrots, wild onions, whatever you can dig up from the ground. This sounds promising. Underground vegetables are calorie-dense, filling, substantial, except you have to find them first, and they don't exactly advertise their location. You're looking for subtle signs, specific leaf patterns, certain types of stems, maybe some disturbed soil, and once you've identified a promising spot, you have to dig, with your hands, or with a stick, or with a rock if you're fancy. You're excavating hard, packed earth, fighting through roots and stones, all to unearth something that might be the size of your thumb. And here's the kicker. Wild roots are tough, fibrous, bitter. They're not the sweet, tender carrots you roast with olive oil and herbs. They're woody, stringy, and taste like the dirt they came from. Some of them are so hard you can barely chew them. You're gnawing on what's essentially a slightly edible stick, and your jaw is getting tired, and you're wondering if the caloric payoff is even worth the effort. But you eat them anyway because calories are calories, and your body is desperate. Your teeth, which are already in rough shape because dental hygiene doesn't exist, are taking a beating. All that chewing on tough plant matter, on gritty roots full of soil particles, is wearing down your enamel. By the time you're 30, if you make it that long, your teeth will be ground down to nubs. But that's a problem for future you. Present you just needs to not starve. Let's talk about greens, leafy plants. Surely those are easy to find and safe to eat, right? Wrong. Most plants in the wild are either inedible or outright poisonous. Nature is not your friend here. Plants have spent millions of years evolving chemical defenses to avoid being eaten. They produce toxins, irritants, and compounds that will make you very sick. Some plants look almost identical but have wildly different effects. One might be nutritious, another might cause vomiting, diarrhea, paralysis, or death. And you won't know which is which unless someone taught you, which means someone before you had to figure it out the hard way. The Paleolithic was basically one long, deadly game of is this food or poison, and the stakes were your life. Even the edible greens are nothing like the lettuce and spinach you're used to. Wild greens are bitter, tough, and loaded with compounds that make them taste awful. That bitterness is actually a defense mechanism, the plant's way of saying, please don't eat me. But you're eating it anyway because you're hungry, and it's technically not killing you, so it qualifies as food. And the caloric content? Depressing. Most leafy greens are basically water and fiber. You can eat pounds of them and still be hungry because they don't provide much energy. They've got vitamins and minerals, sure, which will keep you from getting scurvy or night blindness, but they won't fill your stomach or power your body through a day of hard labor. So what do you do when plants aren't cutting it? You look for protein, and in the foraging world, protein often means insects. Yes, insects, grubs, larvae, beetles, ants, termites, whatever you can find crawling, flying, or burrowing. And before you recoil in disgust, remember that insects are actually an excellent protein source. They're nutrient-dense, often fatty, and surprisingly abundant. You flip over a rotting log, and there they are. Fat, white grubs wriggling in the decayed wood. You pick one up, it's squishy, kind of warm, definitely alive. You pop it in your mouth and bite down. It bursts. There's a creamy, slightly nutty taste, mixed with the texture of something that really didn't want to be eaten. You swallow quickly and reach for another. This is breakfast. Grubs and bitter greens and a few sad berries. Maybe some stringy root vegetable if you got lucky with your digging. No toast. No eggs. No coffee. No variety. Just whatever you could scavenge in the hour or two you've been searching, and it's probably not even enough to meet your caloric needs for the day. And here's the brutal math. Foraging burns calories. Walking, searching, digging, climbing, all of it requires energy. If you spend 3 hours foraging and only find 500 calories worth of food, you've barely broken even. Maybe you've even operated at a loss. This is why plant-based foraging alone isn't enough. It's supplementary. It's what you do while you're hoping for something better, something bigger, something with enough fat and protein to actually sustain you. But that something bigger doesn't just appear. You have to hunt it, track it, kill it. And hunting, as you're about to discover, is less like the documentaries you've seen and more like a part-time job with terrible pay. Brutal hours, and a failure rate that would bankrupt any modern business. So you finish your meager foraged breakfast, still hungry, still tired, and you prepare yourself for the real work of the day, the hunt. You've eaten your handful of berries and your grubs, and your stomach is still growling. Time to go hunting. And I know what you're thinking. Hunting sounds exciting, primal, empowering. You're imagining yourself as some kind of ancient warrior, tracking game through the wilderness, bringing down a magnificent animal with skill and precision. Let me stop you right there. Hunting in the Paleolithic isn't an adventure. It's a full-time job with the worst success rate imaginable. First, let's talk about what you're hunting with. You don't have a gun, you don't have a bow and arrow, at least not for most of the Paleolithic. Those come later. What you have is a wooden spear with a sharpened tip, maybe a stone point if someone in your group is particularly skilled at flint knapping. That's it. Your weapon has a range of maybe 10 to 15 feet if you're strong and accurate, which means you need to get very, very close to an animal that really doesn't want you anywhere near it. Now let's talk about the animals. They're not stupid, they're not slow. They've evolved for millions of years to avoid becoming someone's lunch. They have better hearing than you, better sense of smell, better eyesight in most cases. They're faster than you, more agile than you, and they know the terrain better than you because they live here and you're just a hungry visitor trying not to die. So you start tracking. You're looking for signs, footprints in the mud, broken branches, droppings, anything that tells you an animal passed through this area recently, and you find something. Deer tracks, maybe? Fresh ones? Your heart rate picks up. This could be it. This could be food for days. You follow the tracks. For hours, quietly, slowly, trying not to snap twigs or rustle leaves. Your muscles are tense. Your focus is absolute. You're moving through the forest like a predator, which is aspirational because humans are actually pretty terrible predators compared to the animals we share this environment with. We don't have claws. We don't have sharp teeth. We're not particularly strong or fast. What we have is endurance and intelligence, and we're about to need both. Hours pass. You're tired, you're thirsty again, your feet hurt, and then you see it. A deer, maybe 50 feet away, grazing. It hasn't noticed you yet. This is your moment. You grip your spear. You take a breath. You move closer, inch by agonizing inch. 40 feet, 30 feet, 20 feet. The deer's ear twitches. And then it's gone. Just gone. It bolted before you even registered the movement. Your spear is still in your hand. Useless. The deer is crashing through the underbrush somewhere far away, and you're standing there, exhausted, empty-handed, and profoundly frustrated. This is hunting. This is the reality. Most hunts fail. Not some, not even half. Most. Studies of modern hunter-gatherer societies show success rates anywhere from 10 to 30%, depending on the game and the skill of the hunters. But you can't give up because giving up means starving. So you keep going. You track another animal, or maybe the same one if you're stubborn. And this time, let's say, you get lucky. You get close enough, you throw your spear, and by some miracle, it hits. Not a killing blow, because that almost never happens on the first strike, but you've wounded it. Now comes the real work. Wounded animals run. They run far. They run fast. And you have to follow because you can't let this opportunity escape. So you chase for miles, for hours. This is persistence hunting, one of humanity's oldest techniques. You don't outrun the animal. you outlast it. You keep tracking its blood trail, keep pushing, keep moving, until eventually it collapses from blood loss and exhaustion. Except you might collapse first. Persistence hunting is one of the most physically demanding activities a human can do. You're running, walking, tracking, sometimes for 6, 8, 10 hours straight, in the heat, without adequate food or water. Your body is burning through glycogen stores you don't have. Your muscles are screaming. Your lungs are burning. But you can't stop, because if you stop, the animal recovers or dies somewhere you can't find it. And all this effort was for nothing. Let's say you succeed. You track the animal until it finally goes down. You've done it. You've secured meat. Except now you have to deal with a dead animal that weighs anywhere from 50 to several hundred pounds, and you're miles from your camp, and you have no cart, no vehicle, no easy way to transport this thing. So you butcher it on the spot, with stone tools. If you've never tried to skin and butcher an animal with a rock, let me tell you, it's not clean, it's not quick. It's messy, difficult, and requires a lot of sawing and hacking. The hide is tough. The connective tissue is stubborn. Your hands are covered in blood. And you're working as fast as you can, because the longer this takes, the more likely a larger predator will smell the blood and decide to investigate. Oh, did I mention predators? Because they're a problem. You're not the only carnivore in this ecosystem. There are wolves, bears, big cats, hyenas. They all want the same thing you want, and some of them are perfectly happy to take it from you by force. You might be standing over your hard-won kill, exhausted and vulnerable, when you hear something moving in the trees, something big. And now you have a choice: defend your food and risk injury or death, or abandon it and walk away empty-handed after hours of work. This is the gamble of hunting. Even when you succeed, even when you do everything right, there are so many ways to lose. Injury is common. You might twist an ankle chasing prey, get gouged by antlers, fall and break a bone. And any injury, even a minor one, is potentially fatal, because there's no hospital, no antibiotics, no pain medication. A sprained ankle can mean you can't hunt for days, which means you don't eat, which means you get weaker, which means you're less likely to hunt successfully in the future. Let's talk about the math. You wake up having burned roughly 60 to 80 calories per hour sleeping. Then you spend energy finding water, foraging, and tracking game. You've been active for maybe 8 to 10 hours, burning anywhere from 1,800 to 3,000 calories depending on intensity, and that's just to get to this point. That's just the cost of trying. If the hunt succeeds and you bring down a medium-sized animal, you might secure 10 to 20,000 calories worth of meat. Sounds great, right? Except you're not eating alone. Hunting is usually a group effort. There are other people who helped or who deserve a share because they'll help next time. So that 10,000 calories gets divided among 5, 10, maybe 15 people. Suddenly, your share is much smaller. Maybe enough to sustain you for a few days if you're careful. Maybe not. And if the hunt fails, the deficit compounds. This is how people starved in the Paleolithic. Not dramatically, not all at once, but gradually. Failed hunt after failed hunt, foraged meals that didn't quite provide enough, the slow erosion of your body's reserves until there's nothing left. So, hunting isn't glorious. It's not a guaranteed success. It's a brutal, exhausting gamble that requires hours of effort, specialized skills, physical endurance, and a tremendous amount of luck. Most days, you'll fail. Some days, you'll succeed and still barely break even on energy. And on the rare days when everything goes right, when you bring down a good-sized animal and make it back to camp safely, you'll feast. But you'll also know, deep down, that this is temporary, that tomorrow you start over, that hunger is always waiting. But let's say today is one of those rare, successful days. You've caught something. You've dragged it back to camp, bloodied and exhausted. Now comes the next question. How do you prepare it? How do you cook it? And that's where things get even more complicated, because fire, that thing you absolutely need, is about as reliable as the weather and twice as much work. You've done it. Against all odds, you've actually caught something. Maybe it's a rabbit, maybe a small deer, maybe some kind of wild pig. Whatever it is, it's dead and it's yours, and you're feeling that primal surge of accomplishment that comes from securing food. But here's the thing nobody tells you about hunting success. The work isn't over. In fact, it's barely begun. Because now you have to butcher it, prepare it, and somehow turn this warm carcass into edible nutrition before it spoils or something bigger decides to take it from you. Let's start with butchering, which is not the clean, surgical process you see in documentaries. You don't have stainless steel knives or a sanitized cutting board. What you have is a sharp rock, maybe a flint blade if someone in your group is talented, and you're about to use it to break down an entire animal into manageable pieces while sitting in the dirt, covered in blood, with flies already starting to circle. First, the hide. Animal skin is tough, really tough. It's designed to protect the creature from thorns, bites, and weather. Getting through it requires soaring motions, pressure, and a lot of patience. You're cutting around the legs, peeling back the skin, trying not to puncture the internal organs, because if you do, the contents spill out and contaminate the meat. It's slow work. Your hands cramp. The stone blade dulls. You have to stop and resharpen it multiple times. Once the hide is off, you're faced with the next challenge, accessing the meat. But here's where Paleolithic humans were actually smarter than modern people give them credit for. They didn't just eat the muscle tissue, the stuff we think of as meat today. They ate everything. Organs first, actually, because organs are where the most concentrated nutrients are. The liver, the kidneys, the heart, these are packed with vitamins, minerals, and fats that you desperately need. The liver alone contains massive amounts of vitamin A, vitamin B12, iron, and folate. Your body is craving these nutrients because your diet is otherwise deficient in almost everything. So you cut into the body cavity, carefully remove the organs, and you eat them quickly before they spoil. And here's the part that makes modern people squeamish. You're probably eating them raw, or at best, barely cooked, because fire is unreliable and fuel is limited and you're hungry right now. So you're biting into warm liver, tasting the metallic richness of fresh blood, the slippery texture of kidney, the dense chewiness of heart muscle. It's not seasoned, it's not grilled to perfection. It's just warm, fresh organ meat, and you're eating it because your body needs it more than it needs your comfort. Then there's the brain. If you're smart, and your ancestors were, you crack open the skull and scoop out the brain matter. It's soft, fatty, creamy, high in omega-3 fatty acids that are crucial for cognitive function. Is it disturbing to think about eating brain? Absolutely. Did your ancestors care? Not even a little. Calories are calories. Nutrition is nutrition. Squeamishness is a luxury. Next, the bone marrow. This is the good stuff, the premium fuel. Marrow is almost pure, fat, rich, and calorie-dense. You break open the long bones, the femurs and humeri, with rocks. You scoop out the marrow with your fingers or a stick. It's greasy, coating your hands and mouth, and it tastes, honestly, pretty good. Rich and buttery in a way that plant foods never are. This is what your body has been craving: fat, dense, satisfying, energy-packed fat. Only after you've consumed the organs and marrow do you move on to the muscle meat, the steaks and roasts that modern people prize. And even then, you're not being picky about cuts. You're stripping meat off bones with your hands and teeth, tearing through connective tissue, gnawing on gristle. There's no such thing as a tender cut or a tough cut. There's just meat, and you're eating all of it. But here's the reality check. Most of this, you're eating raw or barely cooked. Yes, raw. Because cooking requires fire, and fire requires wood. And starting a fire requires either an existing ember that you've kept going or the exhausting process of creating friction fire. And we'll get to that nightmare in the next section. But for now, understand that hot food is not a given. It's a luxury, a hope, not a guarantee. Raw meat isn't as dangerous as modern health departments would have you believe, at least not if it's fresh. The real risk is parasites. Tapeworms, trichinella, various other organisms that live in animal tissue and would love to set up shop in your intestines. But your ancestors didn't know about parasites. They couldn't see them. So they ate raw meat regularly. And some of them got sick, and some of them died. And that was just the cost of eating. Let's talk about the social dynamics of this meal. You're not eating alone. Hunting was likely a group effort, or at least your kill belongs partly to the community. So you're sharing, dividing up the meat. The best parts, the fattiest parts, those go to the hunters, the elders, the people with status. You get your share based on your contribution and your standing in the group. And everyone eats fast, not because they're rude, but because there's no way to preserve this food, no refrigeration, no smoking or salting infrastructure. The meat you don't eat today will be questionable tomorrow and definitely spoiled the day after. So when food is available, you gorge. You eat until you physically cannot eat anymore, because this might be the last good meal you have for days. This is called feast or famine eating, and it's how humans evolved to handle food scarcity. When resources are available, you consume as much as possible, and your body stores the excess as fat. When resources are scarce, you burn through those fat reserves. It's an elegant survival mechanism, except it's absolutely miserable to live through. The feast feels good, sure, but the famine, that constant, low-level hunger between successful hunts that grinds you down. There's also zero waste. Everything that's edible gets consumed. The hide becomes clothing or shelter material. The bones become tools. The sinew becomes cordage. The bladder becomes a water container. Even the hooves and horns have uses. Nothing is thrown away, because everything required too much effort to obtain. Waste is not just impractical, it's almost immoral. Now let's talk about what happens if you can't finish the meat. If it's a large kill and there's more than your group can consume immediately, you might try to preserve some of it. Thin strips of meat hung in the sun to dry, smoked over a fire if you can maintain one. But preservation is inconsistent. Some of it dries properly, some of it rots, some of it gets stolen by animals, and all of it requires constant vigilance and labor. Here's something modern paleo dieters don't consider: the taste. Fresh, wild game doesn't taste like farm-raised meat. It's lean, much leaner, because wild animals are constantly moving and burning fat. It's gamey, with strong flavors from the animal's diet. And if you're eating it raw or barely cooked, those flavors are even more pronounced. It's not bad, necessarily, but it's not what you're used to. It's intense, primal, and after weeks of eating it, you'd give anything for variety. But variety doesn't exist. You eat what you catch, and if you catch the same thing repeatedly because that's what's available in your area, then that's what you eat, day after day. The same strong flavors, the same textures, no spices to change it up, no recipes to experiment with. Just meat, in whatever form you can get it, consumed as quickly as possible before it goes bad. And your body, while grateful for the calories, is paying a price. Your digestive system is under constant assault from parasites and bacteria. Your teeth are being ground down from chewing tough, gristly meat and crunching through small bones. Your hands are perpetually cut and scarred from butchering, but you're alive, you're fed, at least for today, and that's more than you can say for yesterday. So you've butchered your kill, you've eaten the best parts raw, you've shared with your group, and now you're sitting there, hands covered in blood and grease, stomach fuller than it's been in days, and you're thinking about tomorrow, because tomorrow you start over. The hunt begins again, the gamble continues, but tonight, just for tonight, you're okay. And if you can manage to start a fire, you might even cook the rest of this meat properly. Which brings us to the next challenge. Fire, that essential, frustrating, absolutely critical element of survival that's about to take up way more of your time and energy than you ever imagined. You've got meat, you've got hungry people, and what you really want right now is a nice hot meal, something cooked, something warm, something that doesn't taste like it was still alive 5 minutes ago. But to make that happen, you need fire. And fire, in the Paleolithic, is not something you just have. It's something you fight for. Let's be clear about what we're dealing with here. You don't have matches. You don't have a lighter. You don't have a magnifying glass or a flint and steel striker. Those technologies are thousands of years away. What you have are two basic options for making fire, and both of them are exhausting, time-consuming, and frustratingly unreliable. Option 1 is the hand drill method. Option 2 is the bow drill method. Both involve friction, both require specific materials, and both will make you question whether cooked food is even worth the effort. Let's start with the hand drill, which is the more primitive of the two. You need a straight, dry stick, about the thickness of a pencil. You need a flat piece of dry wood to use as a base, and you need hands that are about to experience a very special kind of pain. The concept is simple. You place the tip of the stick into a small notch you've carved in the base wood. Then you spin the stick rapidly between your palms, pressing down, creating friction that generates heat. Do this long enough, fast enough, and consistently enough, and you'll eventually create a tiny ember in the wood dust that accumulates in the notch. Sounds easy, right? It's not. First, finding the right materials is harder than you think. The wood needs to be dry, completely dry. If there's any moisture, the friction won't generate enough heat. So if it rained recently, or if you're in a humid environment, you're already at a disadvantage. The stick needs to be straight and smooth. Any wobble or rough spots will slow you down or give you splinters. And both pieces of wood need to be the right type. Too hard, and you won't generate enough wood dust. Too soft, and the stick will just bore a hole without creating heat. Assuming you found perfect materials, Now comes the physical part. You position yourself over the base, stick vertical between your palms. You start spinning, fast, as fast as you can, pressing down hard enough to create friction, but not so hard that you can't maintain speed. Your palms slide down the stick as you spin, so every few seconds you have to stop, reposition your hands at the top, and start again, all while maintaining the pressure and speed. Your palms start to burn, literally. The friction isn't just happening between the stick and the base, it's happening between the stick and your hands. You're developing blisters, raw spots. Your shoulders are burning from the repetitive motion. Your back aches from hunching over, and you've been doing this for 5 minutes with absolutely nothing to show for it except pain and frustration. 10 minutes in, you might see a tiny wisp of smoke. Your heart leaps. You're getting somewhere. You speed up, press harder. Your hands are screaming, but you can't stop now. More smoke. The wood dust in the notch is turning dark. You're so close. And then your hands slip. The stick falls. The smoke dissipates. You have to start over. This is fire making in the Paleolithic. It can take 15, 20, 30 minutes of continuous effort just to create a single ember. And that's if you're skilled, if conditions are perfect, if you don't make mistakes. For someone inexperienced, it might take an hour, or it might not work at all. The bow drill is slightly more efficient, but requires more tools. You need that same stick and base, but now you also need a bow, a string made from plant fibers or animal sinew, and a socket stone to hold the top of the stick steady while you work. The bow wraps around the stick, and you saw it back and forth, spinning the stick without destroying your hands. It's faster, more consistent, but it also requires that you've already made a bow and cordage, which is a whole other time investment. Let's say you succeed. You've created an ember, a tiny, glowing coal in a pile of wood dust. Now the real, delicate work begins. You can't just blow on it hard and hope for flame. You have to transfer that ember to a tinder bundle, a carefully prepared nest of dry grass, shredded bark, or other fine, flammable material. You place the ember in the center, you fold the tinder around it, and you blow, gently at first, giving the ember oxygen without extinguishing it. The tinder starts to smoke. You keep blowing. Steady, controlled breaths. The smoke gets thicker. Your lungs are burning from the sustained exhale. And then, if you're lucky, if the tinder is dry enough and you've done everything right, it ignites. Flame. Actual flame. You've made fire. But you're not done. This tiny flame will die in seconds if you don't feed it properly. You need small twigs, tiny pieces of kindling. You add them carefully, building up the fire gradually. Too much too fast, and you'll smother it. Too slow, and it'll burn out. You're nursing this flame like a fragile newborn because that's essentially what it is. One wrong move, and you're back to square one, spinning a stick between your blistered palms. Once you've got a sustainable fire going, you need to keep it that way, because starting it again tomorrow is going to be just as hard as it was today. So you feed it constantly. You bank it at night, covering it with ash to slow the burn so it doesn't go out while you sleep. You assign someone to watch it, to add wood periodically. Fire maintenance becomes a full-time job. And fuel. Let's talk about fuel. You need wood, lots of wood, dry wood, preferably. But gathering firewood is its own labor-intensive task. You're walking through forests, breaking dead branches, dragging them back to camp. A good fire can burn through an enormous amount of wood in a day. You're constantly gathering, constantly feeding it, And in winter, when you need fire most for warmth, dry wood is harder to find. Everything is damp or frozen. You're burning green wood that smokes terribly and barely produces heat. Here's what fire gives you, though. It's worth understanding why this effort matters. First, heat, obviously. Warmth on cold nights. The difference between hypothermia and survival. Second, light. Fire extends your usable hours beyond sunset. You can see, you can work, you can socialize. Third, protection. Large predators fear fire. A good campfire keeps wolves, bears, and big cats at a respectful distance. Fourth, cooking. And cooking is huge. Cooked food is easier to digest. The heat breaks down proteins and fibers that your digestive system would struggle with raw. It kills parasites and bacteria, reducing your risk of foodborne illness. It makes tough meat tender. It makes bitter plants more palatable. Cooking is essentially outsourcing some of your digestion to an external process, allowing you to extract more calories from the same amount of food. This is a significant survival advantage. But cooking in the Paleolithic is not what you're imagining. There's no pot, no pan, no temperature control. You're roasting meat directly over flames or on hot rocks. You're burning the outside while the inside stays raw. Or you're cooking it so long it becomes charred and leathery. There's no middle ground, no perfectly medium rare steak. Just burnt or bloody, pick one. And the smoke. Oh, the smoke. You're sitting next to an open fire, and the wind keeps shifting, and no matter where you position yourself, smoke is blowing directly into your face. Your eyes water, your throat burns, you cough constantly. This is every meal. Smoked food, smoked air, smoked lungs. You're essentially chain smoking just by trying to eat dinner. Fire is also dangerous. Burns are common. You reach too close to grab something. A spark lands on your skin. You step on a hot coal in the dark. And burns, in a world without antibiotics or sterile bandages, can easily become infected. A minor burn on your hand can turn into a festering wound that makes it impossible to hunt or gather. Fire gives life, but it also takes it. So yes, you want fire, you need fire. But getting it and maintaining it consumes a massive portion of your time and energy, and even when you have it, it's unpredictable. A sudden rainstorm can extinguish it completely. A strong wind can scatter your carefully banked coals, and then you're back to square one, blistered hands and all, trying to create something from nothing. This is why, despite having the ability to make fire, your Paleolithic ancestors probably ate a lot of food raw or only partially cooked. Because fire is hard, it's a gamble, and sometimes you're just too tired, too hungry, too defeated to spend another hour spinning a stick. So you eat your meat cold, you chew your tough roots raw, and you accept that comfort is a luxury you can't always afford. But when you do have fire, when it's crackling and warm and making your food actually taste like something, you appreciate it in a way modern humans never will, because you earned it, every painful, exhausting second of it. So you've got your fire, barely. You've eaten some questionable meat. And now you're thinking, maybe I should round out this meal with some vegetables. For balance, for vitamins, for that vague sense of health your modern brain insists you need. Great idea, except the vegetables available to you are nothing, and I mean nothing like what you're used to. Let's start with the fundamental problem. Wild plants are not domesticated plants. The carrots, broccoli, lettuce, and tomatoes you buy at the grocery store are the result of thousands of years of selective breeding. Humans took wild plants and, generation after generation, chose the ones that tasted better, grew bigger, and were less likely to kill you. What you're dealing with in the Paleolithic are the original versions, the unedited, hostile, frequently toxic ancestors of modern vegetables, and most of them are absolutely terrible. Take wild carrots, for example. The ancestor of the sweet, crunchy, orange vegetable you snack on today is a thin, pale, woody root that tastes bitter and vaguely toxic. It's about as thick as your pinky finger, and getting it out of the ground requires serious digging. Once you've excavated it, you're rewarded with something that's more fiber than food. Chewing it is like gnawing on a particularly unpleasant stick. And the taste? Imagine eating dirt mixed with sadness. Or consider wild cabbage, the ancestor of broccoli, cauliflower, kale, and Brussels sprout. In its natural state, it's a tough, bitter, leafy plant that grows near coastlines. It's loaded with compounds called glucosinolates, which give it a sharp, unpleasant taste. These compounds are actually the plant's defense mechanism, designed to discourage animals from eating it, and it works. You bite into a wild cabbage leaf, and your mouth fills with bitterness so intense it makes you question every decision that led to this moment. Here's the thing about plant bitterness. It's not just unpleasant, it's often a warning sign. Many bitter plants contain toxins, alkaloids, glycosides, saponins, all sorts of chemical compounds that can make you sick or kill you. Plants don't want to be eaten. They've spent millions of years evolving defenses. Some are obvious, like thorns or tough outer shells. Others are chemical warfare. And you can't always tell which is which just by looking. This is why your Paleolithic ancestors had to learn through trial and error. And by error, I mean death. Someone ate a plant. If they got sick but survived, the group learned that plant was dangerous. If they died, the group learned that plant was lethal. This knowledge was passed down, but it was paid for with lives. Every edible plant in your diet was identified because someone, somewhere, took the risk of being the first to try it. Even the plants that won't kill you aren't exactly pleasant. Wild lettuce is tough and bitter, with a milky sap that tastes awful. Wild onions are tiny, pungent, and will make your breath smell like a crime scene for days. Wild garlic is similar, only more intense. Wild greens like dandelion or chicory are so bitter they make your face pucker. But you eat them anyway because they provide some vitamins and minerals you desperately need. Let's talk about what you're actually getting nutritionally from these plants. Not much, is the honest answer. Most wild greens are composed primarily of water and indigestible fiber. The caloric content is negligible. You could eat pounds of wild lettuce and still be hungry because it's not giving you the energy your body needs to function. The vitamins are there, sure. Vitamin C to prevent scurvy, vitamin K for blood clotting, some minerals like calcium and iron. But in terms of fueling your body for the hard, physical labor of survival, plants alone won't cut it. This is why humans are omnivores, not herbivores. Our digestive systems are not designed to extract maximum nutrition from plant matter. We don't have multiple stomach chambers like cows. We can't ferment cellulose efficiently like horses. We need a mixed diet, heavy on animal products for calories and protein, supplemented with plants for micronutrients. The modern vegan diet only works because we have access to cultivated, nutrient-dense plants, fortified foods, and supplements. None of that exists in the Paleolithic. But let's say you're trying to make the best of it. You've gathered a variety of wild greens, roots, and maybe some wild herbs. Now you need to prepare them, except there's no boiling water to blanch them, no oil to saute them, no salt to season them. You're eating them raw or barely warmed by the fire. The texture is tough and fibrous, the taste is overwhelmingly bitter or bland, and you're forcing yourself to chew and swallow because you know your body needs something besides meat. Some plants are easier to tolerate after cooking. Heat can break down some of the bitter compounds and make the fiber slightly more digestible. But cooking requires fire, which, as we've established, is not always available. And even when it is, you're not blanching vegetables in a pot of salted water. You're tossing them near the flames and hoping they soften a bit before they char completely. Here's another delightful reality. Many wild plants contain oxalates, compounds that bind to calcium and can contribute to kidney stones. Others contain phytic acid, which inhibits the absorption of important minerals like iron and zinc. Your body is desperately trying to extract nutrition from what you're eating, but the plants themselves are biochemically interfering with that process. This is, again, their defense mechanism. They don't want to be nutritious to you. And then there's the digestive aftermath. Your gut is not used to processing this much raw, fibrous plant matter. You're bloated, you're gassy, your stomach cramps. You're spending a significant portion of your day dealing with digestive discomfort because your body is struggling to break down cellulose and other complex carbohydrates. Modern humans who try to eat large amounts of raw vegetables often experience the same issues, even with domesticated varieties. Let's talk about specific examples of plants you might encounter. Wild asparagus, thin and tough, with a strong, almost medicinal flavor. Wild mushrooms, which are fantastic if you know what you're doing, but deadly if you don't. There are mushrooms that look almost identical, one edible and delicious, the other causing liver failure. Your ancestors learned to identify the safe ones, but that learning curve involved watching people die in agony. Acorns are another interesting case. They're abundant in many regions, calorie-dense for a plant food, and seem like a great resource. Except they're full of tannins, bitter compounds that are toxic in large quantities. To make acorns edible, you have to leach them. Soak them in water repeatedly, changing the water multiple times until the tannins are removed. This process takes days. Days of labor for a food source that, while useful, is still not as nutritionally valuable as a single successful hunt. Berries, when you can find them, are the exception. They're sweet, relatively easy to eat, and provide quick energy in the form of natural sugars. But they're seasonal, scarce, and you're competing with birds and other animals for them. A good berry patch can be stripped clean in hours. And many berries that look appealing are poisonous. Hollyberries, nightshade berries, pokeweed berries, all will make you violently ill or worse. The psychological toll of eating this way is significant. Food is not enjoyable, it's not comforting, it's not something you look forward to. It's fuel. And often unpleasant fuel at that. You're choking down bitter greens because you know you need them. You're forcing yourself to eat fibrous roots because there's nothing else. The act of eating becomes a chore, a necessary evil rather than a pleasure. Modern paleo diet advocates talk about eating clean, whole foods and feeling amazing. But they're eating selectively bred vegetables that have been cultivated to taste good. They're adding olive oil and sea salt and lemon juice. They're roasting vegetables in ovens at precise temperatures. That's not paleo. That's modern cooking with a restrictive ingredient list. Real Paleolithic vegetable consumption is bitter, difficult, and barely rewarding. So yes, you're eating vegetables in the Stone Age, but not because they're delicious or because you're following some wellness trend. You're eating them because your body will eventually develop scurvy without vitamin C, or you'll go blind without vitamin A, or your bones will weaken without the trace minerals plants provide. You're eating them out of necessity, not choice. And every bitter, fibrous bite reminds you that nature did not design these foods with your enjoyment in mind. Which brings us to the next uncomfortable truth about the Paleolithic diet. Even when you're eating regularly, even when you're consuming both meat and plants, you're still not getting everything your body needs. Nutritional deficiency isn't a possibility, it's a guarantee, and the long-term effects are about to catch up with you in ways that are both visible and debilitating. You've been eating what you can find: meat when you're lucky, bitter plants when you're not, grubs and roots and the occasional handful of berries, and your body, remarkably, has been keeping you alive on this sparse, unpredictable diet. But here's the truth nobody talks about when they romanticize the Paleolithic lifestyle. You're not thriving, you're surviving. And there's a massive difference. Because no matter how hard you forage, no matter how successful your hunts, you are constantly, perpetually deficient in nutrients your body desperately needs. Let's start with the most famous deficiency: scurvy. The vitamin C disease that plagued sailors for centuries. Vitamin C is essential for producing collagen, the protein that holds your body together. Your skin, blood vessels, bones, tendons, all require collagen to maintain their structure. Without adequate vitamin C, your body literally starts falling apart. Early symptoms are subtle. You're tired all the time, but you're always tired, so you barely notice. Your gums start to bleed when you chew tough meat. Small bruises appear on your skin for no apparent reason. You think maybe you bumped into something and forgot, but it gets worse. Your teeth start to loosen. Old wounds that healed poorly begin to reopen. New cuts refuse to close. You develop painful swelling in your joints. Eventually, if left untreated, you hemorrhage internally and die. The solution is simple. Eat foods rich in vitamin C, fresh fruits and vegetables, except fresh fruits are seasonal and rare. Most wild vegetables contain some vitamin C, but you'd need to eat enormous quantities to meet your daily requirements. And cooking destroys vitamin C, so if you're heating your food, which you sometimes are, you're losing even more. Many Paleolithic humans lived in a state of chronic, low-level scurvy. Not enough to kill them quickly, but enough to make them weak, sick, and miserable. Then there's vitamin D, the sunshine vitamin. You need it for calcium absorption, bone health, immune function, and a whole host of other processes. Your body can produce it when your skin is exposed to sunlight. Sounds easy, right? Except if you live in northern latitudes, where winter days are short and the sun is weak, you're not getting enough UV exposure. And if you're spending most of your time in forests or caves, shielded from direct sunlight, you're also at risk. Vitamin D deficiency leads to rickets in children and osteomalacia in adults. Your bones become soft, weak, and deformed. Children develop bowed legs because their bones can't support their body weight. Adults experience bone pain and muscle weakness. Archaeological evidence shows that many Paleolithic skeletons have signs of these conditions: bent leg bones, poorly healed fractures, porous, weakened bone structure. These people were suffering, Calcium is another critical nutrient that's surprisingly hard to obtain. Modern humans drink milk and eat dairy products. Paleolithic humans had no domesticated animals, no milk, no cheese, no yogurt. So where do you get calcium? From bones, if you're consuming them, from certain leafy greens, if you can find enough of them and tolerate the taste, from small fish eaten whole, bones and all. But none of these sources are reliable or abundant. Without adequate calcium, your body starts stealing it from your bones to maintain critical functions like heart rhythm and muscle contraction. Your skeleton becomes a calcium bank, and you're making constant withdrawals with no deposits. Over time, your bones become brittle. Fractures happen more easily. And since you're doing physically demanding labor every day, climbing, running, lifting, the risk of breaking something is high. A broken leg in the Paleolithic is often a death sentence. You can't hunt, you can't gather, you become a burden, and burdens don't last long. Iron deficiency is rampant, especially among women. You need iron to produce hemoglobin, the protein in red blood cells that carries oxygen throughout your body. Meat is a good source, particularly organ meats and blood. But if you're not eating meat regularly, or if you're a woman experiencing menstrual blood loss every month, you're constantly at risk of anemia. Anemia makes you weak and exhausted. You can't catch your breath. Your heart races from minimal exertion. Your skin becomes pale. You feel cold all the time because your body isn't circulating oxygen efficiently. And when you're already living on the edge of survival, when every day requires maximum physical effort, anemia can push you over that edge. You slow down. You can't keep up with the group. You become vulnerable. Vitamin A is crucial for vision, immune function, and reproduction. Deficiency leads to night blindness first. Your eyes struggle to adjust to low light. This is catastrophic in a world without streetlights or flashlights. You can't see predators in the dark. You can't navigate at dusk or dawn. You trip over obstacles. You're essentially handicapped during a significant portion of the day. Severe vitamin A deficiency leads to complete blindness as the corneas dry out and scar. Archaeological evidence suggests this was not uncommon. Skeletons show signs of healed eye socket infections. Blindness in the Paleolithic means dependence on others for survival. You can't hunt. You can't forage effectively. You rely entirely on the charity of your group, and if resources are scarce, charity becomes a luxury. B vitamins are a whole category of deficiencies. B12, found primarily in animal products, is essential for nerve function and red blood cell production. Deficiency causes fatigue, weakness, numbness in the extremities, and eventually neurological damage. Folate, another B vitamin, is crucial for cell division and DNA synthesis. Deficiency during pregnancy causes severe birth defects. Many pregnancies in the Paleolithic likely ended in miscarriage or stillbirth due to nutritional deficiencies. Iodine deficiency is another serious issue, particularly in regions far from the ocean. Iodine is essential for thyroid hormone production. Without it, you develop a goiter, a swollen thyroid gland in your neck. Your metabolism slows down. You gain weight despite eating barely enough. You're constantly cold and fatigued. In severe cases, iodine deficiency causes cretinism, a condition of stunted physical and mental development. Children born with severe iodine deficiency never develop normally. Zinc is necessary for immune function, wound healing, and protein synthesis. Deficiency impairs your ability to fight infections. Cuts and scrapes that should heal in days take weeks. You get sick more often and recover more slowly. In an environment where a minor infection can become life-threatening, this is a serious problem. And teeth. Let's talk about teeth. Your dental health is a disaster. You have no toothbrush, no toothpaste, no floss, no dentist. Your teeth are being constantly abraded by tough, gritty food. Small stones and dirt particles mixed into your meals grind down the enamel. The starch from roots and tubers feeds bacteria that produce acid, causing cavities. And infections from those cavities can spread to your jaw, your bloodstream, your brain. Tooth pain is constant for many people. Abscesses form, swollen pockets of pus at the root of a tooth. The pain is excruciating. It makes eating difficult, which means you're getting even less nutrition. Some people lose teeth entirely. Archaeological skulls show extensive tooth loss in individuals as young as 25 or 30. Missing teeth make it even harder to process food, creating a vicious cycle of malnutrition. The cumulative effect of all these deficiencies is a population that's chronically unwell. You might be in your 20s, but your body feels decades older. You ache constantly. You're weak. You get sick frequently. Your vision is poor. Your teeth hurt. Your bones are fragile. And there's no solution. No supplements, no fortified foods, no medical intervention. You just endure it, day after day, until something gives out completely. Modern paleo diet enthusiasts take multivitamins. They drink fortified almond milk. They eat wild-caught salmon flown in from Alaska. They supplement with vitamin D capsules. They have access to a variety of foods from around the world, ensuring they get every nutrient they need. That's not paleo. That's modern abundance with a restrictive food list. Real Paleolithic nutrition is deficiency, disease, and the slow degradation of your body despite your best efforts to feed it. So yes, you're eating, you're surviving, but thriving? That's a fantasy. Your body is doing its best with insufficient resources, and the long-term damage is accumulating silently. Which brings us to another delightful aspect of Paleolithic eating. The constant digestive chaos your body endures just trying to process the food you manage to find. Your stomach hurts. Not the dull ache of hunger, which you're used to, but something sharper, something wrong. You ate yesterday. Managed to get some meat, some roots, some water from the stream, but now, 12 hours later, you're cramping. Your intestines feel like they're twisting, and you know what's coming next. The violent, urgent need to evacuate everything in your digestive system as quickly as possible. Welcome to Foodborne Illness, Paleolithic Edition. And it's not an occasional problem. It's a regular, exhausting reality of eating in a world without food safety standards. Let's talk about what's actually happening inside your digestive system. Your gut is under constant assault from pathogens, bacteria, parasites, viruses, all hitchhiking into your body through the food and water you consume. E. coli from animal feces contaminating water sources, salmonella from raw or undercooked meat, campylobacter from poultry, giardia and cryptosporidium parasites from untreated water, tapeworms from undercooked game, trichinella from wild pigs. The list is long and unpleasant. Your body has defenses, of course. Your stomach acid is the first line, designed to kill most microorganisms before they reach your intestines. But stomach acid can only do so much. If you're drinking contaminated water throughout the day, eating raw or barely cooked meat, consuming unwashed plants covered in soil and insect droppings, you're overwhelming your defenses. Some pathogens get through, and when they do, they set up shop in your intestines and start reproducing. The symptoms start gradually. Nausea first, a queasy feeling that makes the idea of eating again deeply unappealing. Then cramping as your intestines contract, trying to expel the invaders. Then diarrhea. Lots of diarrhea. Your body's strategy is simple. Get rid of everything as fast as possible. Flush out the pathogens before they can do more damage. It's an effective defense mechanism, but it's also dangerous. Diarrhea dehydrates you. You're losing fluids rapidly, along with electrolytes like sodium and potassium that your body needs to function. In a modern setting, you'd drink clean water, maybe use oral rehydration solutions, and recover in a few days. In the Paleolithic, you're drinking from the same potentially contaminated source that made you sick in the first place. You're reinfecting yourself while trying to recover. It's a vicious cycle that can spiral into severe dehydration, organ failure, and death. Children and the elderly are particularly vulnerable. Their immune systems aren't as robust. A bout of diarrhea that would make an adult miserable for a week can kill a child in days. Infant mortality in the Paleolithic was staggeringly high, and foodborne illness was a major contributor. Many children simply didn't survive their first few years because their bodies couldn't handle the constant pathogen exposure. But let's say you're an adult and you survive this particular episode. You're weak, dehydrated, and haven't eaten properly in days. Your body needs to recover, but recovery requires rest and nutrition. Two things that are in short supply. You still need to find food. You still need to gather water. You can't just lie in bed and recuperate because there is no bed. And taking a day off means not eating, which means getting weaker, which means becoming more vulnerable to the next illness. Parasites are a special kind of nightmare. Unlike bacteria or viruses that cause acute illness and then either kill you or get cleared by your immune system, parasites take up long-term residence. Tapeworms, for example, can live in your intestines for years. They grow by absorbing nutrients from the food you eat. You're essentially feeding a parasite that can reach lengths of 10, 15, even 20 feet coiled up inside you. The symptoms are insidious. You're always hungry because the tapeworm is stealing your nutrition. You're losing weight despite eating whenever you can. You're fatigued, weak, and your stomach is distended. You might see segments of the worm in your stool, little rice-like pieces that are actually packets of tapeworm eggs. It's horrifying. And there's nothing you can do about it. No medication, no treatment. You just live with it, malnourished and infested, until it either kills you or you die of something else first. Giardia is another common parasite, transmitted through contaminated water. It causes giardiasis, a condition characterized by explosive diarrhea, gas, bloating, and abdominal cramps that can last for weeks. The parasite attaches to the lining of your small intestine and interferes with nutrient absorption. Even if you're eating, your body isn't getting the full nutritional value. You're essentially starving despite consuming food. Roundworms are yet another delightful visitor. They're transmitted through contaminated soil, which you're in contact with constantly. You dig for roots with your bare hands. You eat without washing your hands because there's no soap and limited clean water. The roundworm eggs get into your system, hatch in your intestines, and the larvae migrate through your body. They travel through your bloodstream to your lungs, get coughed up, swallowed again, and mature in your intestines. The adult worms can be 6 to 12 inches long and cause intestinal blockages, malnutrition, and in heavy infestations, death. Your immune system is constantly fighting these battles. Every pathogen that enters your body triggers an immune response: inflammation, fever, fatigue. Your body is diverting energy away from other functions like muscle maintenance, cognitive performance, and reproduction to focus on fighting infections. This is why chronic parasitic infections are so debilitating. You're never at full capacity. You're always operating at a deficit. Food poisoning from bacterial toxins is another frequent occurrence. Meat spoils quickly without refrigeration. If you've left a piece of meat sitting for too long, bacteria like Staphylococcus or Clostridium produce toxins that cause violent illness. Vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal pain, sometimes paralysis if it's botulism. You eat something that seemed fine, and within hours you're incapacitated. The psychological toll of living with constant digestive distress is underestimated. You're never comfortable. Your stomach always feels off. You're anxious about eating because you never know if this meal is going to make you sick. You're embarrassed by the frequent, urgent need to defecate, though everyone around you is dealing with the same issues, so there's at least some solidarity in the suffering. Sleep is disrupted constantly. You wake in the night with cramps. You have to stumble outside in the dark to relieve yourself. You're cold, uncomfortable, and your body is fighting an internal battle that makes rest nearly impossible. And poor sleep compounds everything else. Your immune system weakens further. Your cognitive function deteriorates. Your emotional regulation suffers. You're irritable, foggy, and struggling to make good decisions about survival. The modern gut microbiome research suggests that Paleolithic humans might have had more diverse gut bacteria than we do today, which could have provided some protection. But diverse doesn't mean healthy. It just means varied. And many of those bacterial species were probably opportunistic pathogens kept in check by competition and a relatively strong immune system, but ready to cause problems at the first sign of weakness. There's also the issue of eating while sick. You have to. There's no calling in sick to work. There's no meal delivery service. If you want to eat, you have to participate in finding food even when you feel terrible. So you're foraging or hunting while battling nausea, cramps, and weakness. Your performance suffers. You make mistakes. You're less effective. And the cycle continues. The long-term damage to your digestive system from years of this abuse is significant. Chronic inflammation of the intestinal lining, scarring, reduced ability to absorb nutrients. By the time you're in your 30s, if you live that long, your digestive system is a war zone. Every meal is a challenge. You've developed food intolerances. Your gut is permanently damaged from decades of infection, parasites, and inadequate nutrition. Modern paleo dieters talk about gut health. They take probiotics. They eat fermented foods. They avoid processed ingredients. And they're generally fine because they're eating clean, properly prepared food in a sanitary environment. Real Paleolithic gut health is chronic dysentery, parasitic infestations, and a digestive system under siege from the day you're born until the day you die. It's not wellness. It's survival despite constant internal warfare. So yes, you're eating. You're putting food into your body, but your digestive system is paying a brutal price for every calorie you manage to absorb. And as miserable as this is in spring and summer when food is relatively available, it's about to get much worse, because winter is coming. And winter in the Paleolithic is when eating stops being a challenge and becomes a desperate, often futile struggle against starvation. The air is getting colder, the days are getting shorter, and the abundance you experienced, if you can even call it that, during the warmer months is disappearing fast. Welcome to winter in the Paleolithic, where food scarcity stops being an inconvenience and becomes an existential threat, where every calorie you manage to store as body fat during the summer becomes your only buffer between survival and starvation, and where most of that buffer will be gone long before spring arrives. Let's start with what happens to your food sources. Plants die back. Berries are long gone. Most edible greens wither or go dormant. Root vegetables become harder to find and harder to dig out of frozen ground. The easy foraging of summer, which was never actually easy, becomes nearly impossible. You're walking through snow or frozen mud, searching for anything edible and finding almost nothing. Game animals are struggling too. Herbivores are eating whatever they can find, which isn't much. They're burning through their fat reserves just like you are. The deer you might have hunted in autumn are now thin, sinewy, and much harder to catch because they're desperate and alert. Predators are also hungry, which means they're more aggressive and more likely to view you as competition or prey. Hunting in winter is exponentially more difficult. Tracking is easier in snow, sure. You can see footprints clearly. But actually catching anything requires enormous energy expenditure in brutal conditions. You're trudging through deep snow. You're cold, which means your body is burning extra calories just to maintain core temperature. Your fingers are numb, making it harder to grip your spear or work your tools. And the animals you're chasing are faster on snow than you are because they've evolved for this environment and you haven't. Let's talk about what cold does to your body. Your basal metabolic rate increases in winter. You burn more calories at rest just to stay warm. This is thermogenesis, the production of heat through metabolic processes. It's an automatic response to cold exposure. Your body shivers, muscle contractions that generate heat, but shivering burns energy. Energy you desperately need to conserve because food is scarce. You're caught in a terrible bind. You need more calories to survive the cold, but there are fewer calories available. The gap between what your body needs and what you can provide widens every day, and your body starts making adjustments, brutal survival mode adjustments. First, your metabolism slows. Your body is smart. It recognizes famine conditions and downregulates energy expenditure. Non-essential functions get deprioritized. Your reproductive system shuts down. Women stop menstruating. Men experience decreased testosterone and libido. Your body is saying, this is not the time to create new life. We're barely keeping the existing life going. Your immune system weakens. Fighting infections requires energy, and energy is being rationed. You become more susceptible to illness. Respiratory infections are common in winter, and your compromised immune system struggles to fight them off. A cold that would have been a minor annoyance in summer can develop into pneumonia in winter. And pneumonia, without antibiotics or medical care, is often fatal. Your cognitive function deteriorates. Your brain, which normally uses about 20% of your total caloric intake, starts running on a deficit. You're slower, less alert. Your decision-making suffers. You make mistakes you wouldn't have made when well-fed. You misjudge distances. You take unnecessary risks. You forget important survival information. And in an environment where one mistake can kill you, this is catastrophic. Physically, you're wasting away. Your body is catabolizing itself. It's breaking down muscle tissue to convert protein into glucose to keep your brain and vital organs functioning. You're losing strength at the exact time you need it most. Climbing, running, hunting, all become harder. Your body composition shifts. The lean muscle mass you built through months of physical labor is being sacrificed to keep you alive one more day. Your fat reserves, which you spent the summer building, are depleting rapidly. Fat is an excellent energy storage system. 1 pound of body fat contains roughly 3,500 calories. If you went into winter with maybe 15 to 20 pounds of extra fat, which is optimistic, you have somewhere between 52,000 and 70,000 calories stored. Sounds like a lot, right? Except you're burning 2,000 to 3,000 calories per day just existing in the cold. More if you're active, which you have to be to have any hope of finding food. That stored fat will last maybe 3 to 4 weeks if you're eating absolutely nothing. But you're not eating nothing. You're eating small amounts, barely enough to slow the depletion but not stop it. Every day, you're operating at a deficit. Every day, you're getting thinner, weaker, colder. Sleep becomes both more necessary and more difficult. Your body needs rest to conserve energy, but you're cold, profoundly cold. Your shelter is inadequate. Your bedding is insufficient. You're huddled close to others for warmth, but it's never enough. You shiver through the night, which prevents deep sleep and burns precious calories. You wake up exhausted, having spent the night in a state of semi-consciousness, your body fighting to maintain temperature. The psychological impact of winter starvation is devastating. You think about food constantly. It dominates every thought. You dream about it. You fantasize about meals you've had in the past. Your entire existence narrows to a single focus: finding calories. Everything else, social bonds, comfort, long-term planning, becomes irrelevant. You're operating on pure survival instinct. Mood deteriorates across the entire group. Everyone is hungry, cold, and miserable. Irritability spikes. Conflicts erupt over trivial things. The social cohesion that's essential for survival frays. People who were cooperative in summer become selfish and territorial in winter. Food sharing becomes a source of tension. Who deserves more? Who contributed more to the hunt? Who's eating more than their share? These arguments are bitter and sometimes violent. Children suffer most. They have less body fat to draw on. Their smaller bodies lose heat faster. They need nutrition for growth but aren't getting it. Many children simply don't survive winter. They develop infections their weakened immune systems can't fight. They succumb to hypothermia. They starve. Infant and child mortality spikes dramatically in winter months. Parents watch their children waste away, unable to provide the nutrition they need because it simply doesn't exist. The elderly are similarly vulnerable. They've lived through many winters, which is impressive, but each one takes a toll. Their bodies are less resilient. They recover more slowly from illness. They need more calories to maintain body temperature, but receive less because they can't contribute as much to food gathering. In times of extreme scarcity, the group may make the brutal calculation that feeding the elderly means starving the young. It's not cruelty. It's math. And it's heartbreaking. Some groups develop strategies to survive winter. They dry meat in autumn and store it. They collect and hide nuts. They move to areas where resources are slightly more available. But none of these strategies eliminate the fundamental problem. There's not enough food. Period. Winter in temperate and northern climates is a caloric desert, and human ingenuity can only do so much against the laws of thermodynamics. There's also the issue of fresh food spoilage versus preservation. In winter, frozen meat can last longer, which is helpful, but starting fires to cook it is harder because wood is damp or frozen. You're eating more raw or partially frozen food, which is unpleasant and increases your risk of parasites. And if you can't maintain a fire, you're also losing the warmth it provides, compounding your misery. Some people resort to eating things they wouldn't consider in other seasons. Tree bark, if you can strip it and make it chewable. Lichen, which provides minimal nutrition but at least gives your stomach something to process. Bones that have already been picked clean, boiled again to extract any remaining marrow or nutrients. It's desperation eating, consuming anything that won't immediately kill you in hopes of adding even a few calories to your daily intake. The sensation of hunger in winter is different from summer hunger. It's deeper, more painful. Your stomach doesn't just feel empty. It feels like it's collapsing in on itself. You experience sharp cramps that double you over. You feel weak and dizzy. Your hands shake. Your vision blurs at the edges. These are signs of severe energy deficit. Your body is shutting down non-essential functions and screaming at you to find food. And yet, you keep going, because the alternative is lying down and giving up, which some people do. When the hunger becomes too much, when the cold is unbearable, when there's no hope of finding food, some individuals simply stop, they curl up, close their eyes, and let the cold take them. It's a peaceful death, relatively speaking. Hypothermia causes confusion and eventually unconsciousness. You just slip away. And come spring, the group finds bodies, people who didn't make it through. This is winter in the Paleolithic. Not a season of cozy fires and hearty stews, a season of starvation, cold, death, and the desperate hope that you've stored enough body fat and found enough food to last until the plants start growing again. And if you do survive, if you make it to spring, you're not the same person who entered winter. You're thinner, weaker, traumatized by months of deprivation, and now you have to rebuild, regain the weight you lost, restore your strength. Because next winter is only months away, and the cycle begins again. You've eaten, or at least you've consumed something that resembled food. Maybe it was a successful hunt. Maybe it was a handful of roots and some questionable berries. Either way, you've put something in your stomach. And now, a few hours later, you're realizing that your body has accepted this offering but is not particularly happy about it. Because, in the Paleolithic, eating isn't the end of the challenge. It's the beginning of a whole new battle. The battle happening inside your digestive system, where your body tries to extract nutrition while fighting off the various pathogens, parasites, and irritants you just introduced. Let's talk about what fullness actually means in this context. In the modern world, you eat until you feel satisfied. Your stomach sends signals to your brain that you've had enough, and you stop. In the Paleolithic, fullness is different. You're not eating until you're satisfied. You're eating until you physically cannot fit more food in your stomach, because you don't know when the next meal is coming, and your body knows it too. So when food is available, you gorge. You eat past the point of comfort. You eat until your stomach is distended and painful. This is feast or famine physiology. Your body has evolved mechanisms to handle this pattern. When food is abundant, hormones like insulin spike, signaling your cells to store energy as fat. Your appetite increases. You feel driven to eat more even when you're technically full. This is leptin resistance in action. Your body overriding satiety signals to maximize caloric intake while it's possible. It's a brilliant survival adaptation. It's also deeply uncomfortable. Your stomach is stretched beyond its normal capacity. You feel bloated, heavy, almost sick. Moving is difficult. Bending over is impossible. You're lying on your side, trying to find a position that doesn't make the pressure worse. And this feeling, this overstuffed misery, is actually a good day, because it means you ate. Tomorrow, you might not be so lucky. But fullness doesn't mean satisfaction. It doesn't mean nutritional completeness. You've filled your stomach with volume, but the actual nutrient density of what you ate is questionable. That fibrous root vegetable? Mostly water and indigestible cellulose. Those bitter greens? Minimal calories. Even the meat, while nutritious, might have been lean and stringy, lacking the fat your body craves. So your stomach is full, but your cells are still hungry. Your body is still in deficit. This is the paradox of Paleolithic eating. You can be full and malnourished at the same time. Your stomach is packed with food, but you're not getting the vitamins, minerals, and essential fatty acids you need. Your body is processing bulk without extracting sufficient nutrition, and the long-term effects of this are the deficiencies we've already discussed. Scurvy, rickets, anemia, all happening despite the fact that you're technically eating. Now let's talk about the psychological relationship with food that develops in this environment. In modern society, food is often tied to pleasure, comfort, and social bonding. You eat foods you enjoy, you savor flavors, you look forward to meals. In the Paleolithic, food is survival, pure and simple. It's not about enjoyment, it's about staying alive one more day. This creates a complicated emotional relationship with eating. On one hand, you're grateful when food is available, profoundly grateful. The relief of eating after days of hunger is intense. On the other hand, the act of eating is often unpleasant. The food tastes bad. The texture is off-putting. You're forcing yourself to consume things that make you gag because your body needs the calories. There's no joy in it, just necessity. And you're never truly relaxed while eating. You're anxious, constantly looking around for threats, other humans who might want your food, animals that smell the meat you're consuming. You eat quickly, defensively, ready to protect your meal or flee if necessary. This is not a peaceful dining experience. It's stressful. Your cortisol levels are elevated. Your sympathetic nervous system is activated. You're in fight or flight mode even while nourishing yourself. This chronic stress while eating has digestive consequences. Your body diverts blood flow away from your digestive system when you're stressed. It prioritizes your muscles, preparing you to run or fight. This means digestion is less efficient. You're not breaking down food as thoroughly. You're not absorbing nutrients as effectively. So even the limited nutrition in your food is being further reduced by your stress response. Sleep after a large meal is complicated. Your body wants to rest and focus on digestion, but you're in an unsafe environment. You can't fully relax. You sleep lightly, half alert to sounds and movements. And your digestion is working overtime, processing the large volume of food you consumed. Your intestines are contracting, pushing food through. You experience cramping, gas, the need to defecate in the middle of the night, which means leaving your shelter and exposing yourself to cold and predators. There's also the issue of food security within the group. Who gets to eat? How much? In an egalitarian group, food is shared relatively equally. But humans are still humans. There are hierarchies, tensions. The best hunters might get larger portions. Nursing mothers need more food. Children are prioritized. usually, but in times of extreme scarcity, these decisions become brutal. Not everyone can eat enough. Someone has to go without. This creates social stress, resentment, feelings of unfairness. You're eyeing other people's portions, wondering if they got more than you, feeling guilty if you ate more than someone else. These dynamics corrode group cohesion, and yet the group is essential for survival. You need cooperation to hunt, to gather, to protect each other. So you suppress these feelings, but they simmer beneath the surface. Let's talk about the absence of comfort food. In modern life, when you're stressed or sad or tired, you might reach for something that soothes you. Chocolate, warm bread, something familiar and pleasant. In the Paleolithic, food is never comforting in that way. It's fuel, sometimes bitter, sometimes tough, always hard-won. There's no emotional relief in eating. You don't feel better psychologically after a meal. You just feel less desperately hungry. This lack of food-related comfort affects your mental health. Food is one of the basic pleasures of human existence. When that pleasure is removed, when eating becomes purely functional and often unpleasant, it adds to the general misery of survival. You're not just physically deprived, you're emotionally deprived. There's no joy, no treats, no celebrations involving special meals, just the grind of finding and consuming enough to not die. The modern concept of being satisfied, of feeling content after a meal, doesn't really exist. You're either painfully hungry or uncomfortably full. There's no middle ground, no balanced, pleasant state of satiety. You oscillate between extremes, starvation and gorging, deprivation and excess. Your body is always in crisis mode, never in equilibrium. And here's something modern people don't consider. You're never truly full in the sense of having eaten enough to meet all your nutritional needs. You might have a full stomach, but your body is still craving specific nutrients it's not getting. Your cells are signaling for vitamin C, for iron, for omega-3 fatty acids, but all you can give them is more fibrous roots and stringy meat. So the craving persists, a deep cellular hunger that can't be satisfied by volume alone. This creates a permanent state of low-level dissatisfaction. You've eaten, but you're not nourished. You're surviving, but you're not thriving, and your body knows the difference. It's constantly trying to signal what it needs, but you have no way to provide it. So you live with this background noise of nutritional deficit, this constant biochemical stress of cells trying to function without adequate resources. The psychological toll of never feeling truly satisfied is profound. You become obsessed with food. It dominates your thoughts. You plan your next meal while eating your current one. You strategize about where to find food tomorrow. You dream about eating. Your entire mental landscape is shaped by scarcity, and this is exhausting. It leaves no room for other thoughts, other pursuits, other aspects of being human. Modern paleo dieters talk about feeling satisfied on their diet, about not being hungry between meals, about having stable energy throughout the day. They're experiencing this because they're eating nutrient-dense, carefully prepared foods in sufficient quantities. They're hitting their macros and micros. They're dining in climate-controlled homes without the threat of starvation hanging over them. That's not fullness in the Paleolithic sense. That's modern abundance dressed up as ancestral eating. Real Paleolithic fullness is your stomach stretched to capacity with food that barely meets your caloric needs and definitely doesn't meet your nutritional one. It's the uncomfortable, bloated feeling of having eaten too much, too fast because you had to. It's the anxiety of knowing this feeling is temporary and hunger will return soon. It's the absence of satisfaction, of comfort, of any positive emotional connection to the act of eating. You're never full. Not really. You're just not actively dying of hunger in this specific moment. And that's the best you can hope for. Which brings us to the broader reality of what this diet actually does to your body and mind over the long term. Because the cumulative effect of eating this way, of this constant cycle of deprivation and inadequate nourishment, is a life that's brutally short and filled with suffering that modern humans can barely comprehend. You're 22 years old. In the modern world, you'd be just starting your adult life. Fresh out of college maybe, beginning a career, still figuring out who you are. But in the Paleolithic, 22 makes you middle-aged. Not metaphorically, literally, because the average lifespan, if you've survived childhood, is somewhere between 30 and 40 years. And your body already feels ancient. Your joints ache, your teeth are loose, your vision is declining. You're exhausted all the time, and you're starting to understand, with a clarity that's both sobering and terrifying, that you don't have much time left. Let's talk about what the Paleolithic diet does to your body over the course of a lifetime, not a theoretical lifetime, an actual Paleolithic lifetime, which is mercifully short because your body simply cannot sustain this level of deprivation for very long. Every system, every organ, every cell is operating under chronic stress, and eventually, something gives out. Your cardiovascular system is under enormous strain. You're physically active, which is good for your heart in some ways, but you're also malnourished, which is terrible for it in every way. Your heart muscle needs nutrients to function properly. Magnesium, potassium, B, vitamins, all of which are in short supply. Without adequate nutrition, your heart becomes less efficient. Arrhythmias develop. Your blood pressure becomes unstable. And the physical demands of survival, the constant exertion required just to find food and stay warm, push your cardiovascular system to its limits daily. Atherosclerosis, the buildup of plaque in your arteries, is less common than in modern, sedentary populations. But other cardiovascular issues take its place. Infections can damage your heart valves. Nutritional deficiencies cause cardiomyopathy, a weakening of the heart muscle. And the chronic inflammation from constant immune activation contributes to cardiovascular deterioration. By your late 20s, your heart has been working overtime for decades, and it's wearing out. Your musculoskeletal system is breaking down. Your bones, already weakened by calcium and vitamin D deficiencies, are becoming brittle. Fractures are common, and they don't heal well because you lack the nutrients necessary for bone repair. A broken bone often heals crooked or doesn't heal at all, leaving you with chronic pain and limited mobility. Your spine shows signs of degenerative disc disease. Your joints are developing arthritis from years of physical labor without adequate recovery. Your teeth, as we've discussed, are a disaster. By your mid-20s, you've likely lost several. The ones that remain are worn down, cracked, or infected. Dental abscesses are a common cause of death. An infection in a tooth can spread to your jaw, then to your bloodstream, then to your brain or heart. It's called sepsis, and without antibiotics, it's almost always fatal. It's potentially life-ending. Your immune system is exhausted. It's been fighting off pathogens, parasites, and infections since the day you were born. And while this constant exposure has made you somewhat resilient to local diseases, it's also worn you down. Your body's ability to mount an effective immune response is declining. A respiratory infection that you would have shaken off at 15 now lingers for weeks. A wound that would have healed quickly at 20 now becomes infected and refuses to close. Your skin tells the story of your life. Scars from injuries, sun damage from constant outdoor exposure, infections that left permanent marks. You look decades older than your chronological age. If a modern person saw you, they'd guess you were in your 40s or 50s. The weathering, the malnutrition, the lack of any skincare or sun protection, it all adds up. Your face is lined, your skin is leathery. You look like someone who's survived something, because you have. You've survived being alive in the Paleolithic. Let's talk about cognitive decline. Your brain, that energy-hungry organ, has been running on insufficient fuel for years. Chronic malnutrition affects brain function. Memory problems develop. You forget things you used to know. Your processing speed slows. You're not as quick to react to danger. Your judgment becomes impaired. And this cognitive decline makes you more vulnerable. You make mistakes. You take risks you shouldn't. You miss warning signs that would have been obvious when you were younger. Sleep quality deteriorates as you age, even in your 20s. You're in constant pain, your joints ache, your teeth throb. Your stomach is always unsettled. Finding a comfortable position is impossible. You wake frequently throughout the night, and poor sleep compounds everything else. Your immune system weakens further. Your cognitive function declines faster. Your emotional regulation becomes more difficult. You're irritable, depressed, and struggling to maintain the mental resilience that survival requires. For women, reproductive health is particularly brutal. Multiple pregnancies without adequate nutrition take a devastating toll. Each pregnancy depletes your body's stores of calcium, iron, and other essential nutrients. Your bones weaken, your teeth fall out faster, and childbirth itself is extraordinarily dangerous. Without medical intervention, maternal mortality rates are high. Hemorrhage, infection, obstructed labor, all can kill you. Many women don't survive their childbearing years. Men fare slightly better in some ways, but not by much. The physical demands of hunting and defending the group lead to cumulative injuries. Old wounds that never healed properly cause chronic pain. Previous fractures limit your mobility. You're not as fast or strong as you used to be. And in a survival context, losing your physical capabilities means losing your value to the group. You can't contribute as much. You become dependent on others, and that's a precarious position. The psychological impact of aging in the Paleolithic is profound. You're acutely aware of your declining abilities. You remember being stronger, faster, more capable. You see younger members of the group taking over roles you used to fill. And you know, with a certainty that's hard to articulate, that your time is limited. There's no retirement, no comfortable old age. You work until you can't anymore, and then you die. This awareness affects how you approach each day. There's a resignation, an acceptance of mortality that modern humans, cocooned in our extended lifespans and medical interventions, don't really experience. You're not afraid of death in the abstract. You're watching it approach in real time, one failing system at a time. And while that might sound depressing, there's also a certain clarity to it. You know what matters: survival today, connection with your group, the immediate present, because the future is uncertain and probably short. Chronic pain becomes your constant companion. Your back hurts from years of carrying heavy loads. Your knees ache from endless walking and running. Your shoulders are damaged from throwing spears, and there's no treatment, No pain medication, no physical therapy, you just endure it. Every movement is accompanied by discomfort. Getting up, sitting down, lying down, none of it brings relief. Pain is just part of existence. Your sensory abilities decline. Your vision, already strained from nutritional deficiencies, becomes worse. You develop cataracts. Your ability to see detail diminishes. Your hearing declines from years of exposure to the elements and untreated ear infections. Your sense of smell, so important for detecting danger and finding food, becomes less acute. You're losing the sensory inputs that keep you safe and effective. The cumulative effect of all this decline is a quality of life that would be unacceptable to modern standards. You're in pain, you're malnourished. You're exhausted. You're losing your physical and cognitive abilities, and you're only in your 20s or 30s. By the time you reach your late 30s or early 40s, if you reach them at all, you're a shell of what you once were. Your body has been used up by the demands of survival. Modern paleo diet advocates are typically healthy, active people in their 20s, 30s, or 40s who feel great on their diet. They're exercising in climate-controlled gyms. They're taking supplements. They're living in safe, abundant environments. They have no conception of what it means to actually live a Paleolithic lifestyle for decades. Because if they did, they'd realize that by their current age, a real Paleolithic human would be elderly, if not already dead. The irony is that the genes we carry, the ones that allowed our ancestors to survive long enough to reproduce, are the same genes that predispose us to modern diseases of abundance. Our bodies are optimized for scarcity, for storing fat when food is available, for craving high-calorie foods, for operating in a state of chronic, low-level stress. These adaptations kept humans alive in the Paleolithic, but they make us vulnerable to obesity, diabetes, and heart disease in the modern world. We're stuck with a Paleolithic body in a modern environment, and it's a terrible mismatch. So when you think about living to old age in the Paleolithic, understand that old age means late 30s, and by that point, you're ready to go. Your body is failing. Your quality of life is poor. You're a burden to your group, consuming resources without contributing much in return. When death comes, whether from infection, injury, or simply the accumulated damage of years of malnutrition and hard living, it's almost a relief, a release from the constant struggle, and the group mourns briefly, then moves on, because they have to, because survival doesn't stop for grief, and the cycle continues, with the next generation inheriting the same brutal existence. Here's the fundamental truth about eating in the Paleolithic that nobody wants to acknowledge. You're never satisfied. Not in the way modern humans understand satisfaction. Not in the comfortable, content, fully nourished way that comes from a balanced meal in a safe environment. You're either starving or you're temporarily not starving. And there's a universe of difference between those two states and actual satisfaction. Let's talk about what satisfaction really means from a biological perspective. When you eat a nutritionally complete meal, your body sends a cascade of signals that tell you you're done. Leptin, the satiety hormone, rises. Your stomach stretches and sends signals to your brain that you've consumed enough volume. Your blood sugar stabilizes. Your cells receive the nutrients they need and stop sending hunger signals. You feel content, peaceful. Your nervous system shifts from stress to rest and digest mode. This is true satisfaction. In the Paleolithic, this almost never happens. You might fill your stomach with volume, sure. You might cram in enough food that you physically can't eat more, but your body knows it's not getting what it needs, You're missing essential amino acids. You're deficient in vitamins and minerals. You're not getting enough healthy fats. So even with a full stomach, your cells are still signaling hunger. Your body is still searching for the nutrients it's lacking. This creates a strange disconnect. Your stomach feels full, stretched even, but you're not satisfied. You still feel hungry in a deep, cellular way. It's like being thirsty while standing in the ocean. There's plenty of volume, but it's not what your body actually needs. And this feeling, this persistent dissatisfaction, becomes your baseline. You forget what it feels like to be truly nourished because you never are. Modern research on food insecurity shows that people who've experienced chronic hunger develop a different relationship with fullness. Even when food becomes available, even when they're eating regularly, they maintain an anxiety around meals. They eat quickly. They eat everything on their plate, regardless of whether they're still hungry. They hoard food when they can. This is learned behavior from scarcity. And in the Paleolithic, everyone has this relationship with food because scarcity is the default. You eat fast, always, even when there's no immediate threat, even when you theoretically have time, you consume food rapidly. Because instinct tells you this opportunity might not last. Someone might take it from you. A predator might show up. The food might spoil. So you shove it in your mouth as quickly as possible, barely chewing, barely tasting, just getting it inside your body where it's yours and safe from loss. This rapid eating means you're not giving your body time to register fullness. The hormonal signals that indicate satiety take 15 to 20 minutes to reach your brain, but you've eaten everything available in 5 minutes. So you consume more than you need when food is abundant because your brain hasn't caught up to tell you to stop. Then later, when the signals finally arrive, you're uncomfortably overfull. But by then, it's too late. There's also no such thing as comfort food. Food doesn't make you feel better emotionally. It doesn't soothe you when you're stressed or sad. Because food is never pleasant enough to provide comfort. It's bitter, or tough, or bland, or all three. The act of eating is utilitarian. You're fueling your body the way you'd fuel a fire, feeding it whatever burns, regardless of how it smells or how much smoke it produces. The absence of pleasure in eating affects your mental health more than you'd think. Food is one of the basic joys of human existence. It's tied to celebration, to social bonding, to reward and comfort. Remove that positive association and life becomes grimmer. There's one less source of dopamine, one less reason to feel good. You're existing in a state of perpetual, mild deprivation, not just physically, but emotionally. Let's talk about what fullness feels like physically. Your stomach is distended, you feel heavy, sluggish. There's pressure against your diaphragm, making breathing slightly uncomfortable. You might feel nauseous because you've overwhelmed your digestive system. You're lying down because movement makes the discomfort worse. And you're experiencing this bloated misery because you had the opportunity to eat and you took it. This is what passes for a good day. The contrast with hunger is stark. When you're hungry, really hungry, you have a gnawing pain in your stomach. Your blood sugar is low, making you shaky and irritable. You can't think clearly. You're obsessed with food. Every conversation somehow circles back to eating. Every thought is about where the next meal will come from. It's mentally exhausting. And when you finally eat, you transition from that obsessive hunger state to the uncomfortable fullness state without ever passing through satisfaction. Sleep is affected by both extremes. When you're hungry, you can't sleep well. Your body is in stress mode. Cortisol levels are elevated. Your brain is alert. scanning for food opportunities even while you're trying to rest. You wake frequently. You dream about eating. When you're overfull, you also can't sleep well. Your digestive system is working overtime. You have acid reflux. You need to get up to urinate or defecate. There's no comfortable sleeping position. Either way, whether hungry or full, quality sleep is elusive. This chronic sleep deprivation compounds everything else. Your immune system weakens, your cognitive function declines, your emotional regulation suffers, you're more prone to anxiety and depression, and poor sleep increases hunger hormones, making you crave food even more intensely when it's not available. It's a vicious cycle that never ends. The psychological toll of never feeling satisfied is profound. You develop a scarcity mindset that colors everything. You can't plan for the future because the future is too uncertain. You can't save resources because storage isn't reliable. You can't share generously because you might need those calories tomorrow. You become focused on immediate survival at the expense of everything else. Long-term thinking, creativity, philosophical contemplation, these are luxuries you can't afford. Modern humans have access to satisfaction in a way that's unprecedented in evolutionary history. You can eat when you're hungry. You can eat until you're full. You can eat foods that taste good. You can eat a variety of items that provide complete nutrition. You can eat in safety without fear of predators or theft. You can store food for later. You can plan meals in advance. This is abundance beyond anything your ancestors could have imagined. And yet, modern humans often feel unsatisfied. We overeat despite having enough. We crave foods even when we're full. We obsess about the next meal even though the last one was nutritionally complete. Why? Because we're running Paleolithic software in a modern environment. Our brains are wired for scarcity, for never being satisfied, for always seeking more because more might not be available later. This is why diets are so hard, why weight loss is difficult to maintain, why we struggle with portion control despite intellectual understanding of nutrition. Our bodies and brains are designed to never feel truly satisfied, to always want more, to store energy as fat whenever possible. These were adaptive traits in the Paleolithic. They kept our ancestors alive through famines, but in a world of abundance, they drive obesity, diabetes, and metabolic disease. And haven't ends. The paleo diet trend tries to recreate ancestral eating patterns, but it misses the fundamental point. Ancestral eating wasn't about satisfaction, it was about survival. The feeling of never being quite full enough, of always wanting more, that's not a bug in the system, it's a feature. It's what kept humans alive when food was scarce. And you can't recreate that psychological state with meal plans and grocery lists in a safe, abundant environment. Real Paleolithic eating means accepting that satisfaction is not the goal. Survival is the goal. And if survival means eating until you're uncomfortably full when food is available and enduring gnawing hunger when it's not, then that's what you do. There's no middle ground. No balanced state of contentment, just oscillation between extremes, feast and famine, deprivation and excess, never quite enough and way too much. This is the reality of the caveman diet that nobody wants to acknowledge. You're never full in the way that matters. You're just not dying of starvation in this specific moment, and that's the highest aspiration you can have. Which brings us to the final, uncomfortable truth about all of this. Why this matters. Why understanding the reality of Paleolithic eating should change how you think about food, about your body, and about the incredible gift of living in a time and place where satisfaction is actually possible. So here we are. You've spent a day living on a caveman's diet, and if you're being honest with yourself, you wouldn't have lasted. Not even close. Not because you're weak or soft or spoiled, but because the actual Paleolithic diet, the real one your ancestors survived on, is nothing like the wellness trend that borrowed its name. It's brutal, it's insufficient, it's dangerous, and it's a testament to human resilience that anyone survived it at all. Let's talk about why this matters, why we spent all this time walking through the misery of ancestral eating, because understanding the reality of how humans evolved to eat doesn't just give you historical perspective. It explains everything about your relationship with food right now. In this moment, in your modern life, where starvation isn't a threat but your brain still acts like it is, your body is a Paleolithic machine. It's been optimized over hundreds of thousands of years to handle scarcity, to store fat when calories are available, to crave high-energy foods, to feel hungry even when you've eaten enough by modern standards. These traits kept your ancestors alive. They made the difference between surviving winter and starving to death. They're hardwired into your biology at the deepest level. But you're not living in the Paleolithic anymore. You're living in a world of unprecedented abundance. Food is available 24 hours a day. You can get thousands of calories delivered to your door with a few taps on your phone. Your grocery store has more variety than an ancient human would encounter in their entire lifetime. You have refrigeration, preservation, global supply chains. You have access to nutrition that would seem like magic to your ancestors. And your body has no idea what to do with this. Your Paleolithic brain is screaming at you to eat more, store more, prepare for the famine that's surely coming. Except the famine never comes. So you store and store and store, and the storage becomes obesity. The adaptive trait becomes a disease. The survival mechanism becomes self-destruction. This is the fundamental mismatch between our evolutionary past and our modern present. Let's talk about cravings. You crave sugar, fat, and salt. Not because you're weak-willed or addicted, though those might be factors, but because your ancestors survived by seeking out exactly those nutrients. Sugar meant ripe fruit, a rare source of quick energy. Fat meant calorie-dense meat or nuts that could sustain you through scarcity. Salt was essential for electrolyte balance and almost impossible to find in sufficient quantities. Your brain rewards you with dopamine when you consume these things because consuming them used to mean the difference between life and death. But now, these nutrients are everywhere. Cheap, abundant, engineered into foods to be hyperpalatable. Your ancient reward system is being hijacked by modern food science. You're experiencing cravings that made sense in a world of scarcity, but make you sick in a world of abundance. And understanding this doesn't make the cravings go away, but it does give you perspective. You're not broken. You're just running outdated software. The same is true for hunger and fullness signals. Your body is designed to never feel quite satisfied, to always want a little more, to push you to eat when food is available because availability was never guaranteed. This made sense when meals were separated by days of hunger. It makes less sense when your next meal is 3 hours away and you know exactly what you're having. But your body doesn't know that. It just knows the pattern of scarcity it evolved in, and it's responding accordingly. This is why diets are so hard, why weight loss is difficult to maintain. You're fighting against millions of years of evolution, against biological imperatives that kept your species alive. Your body interprets caloric restriction as the beginning of a famine. It responds by slowing your metabolism, increasing hunger hormones, and making you obsessed with food. These are the same mechanisms that helped your ancestors survive lean times, but they make intentional weight loss a constant battle against your own biology. Understanding this should make you kinder to yourself. You're not failing at eating right because you lack discipline. You're struggling because you're a Paleolithic human in a modern world, and the mismatch is profound. Your body is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. It's just that what it's supposed to do is no longer appropriate for the environment you're in. So what do you do with this information? How do you live with a Stone Age body in a modern world? First, gratitude. Real, genuine gratitude for the abundance you have, for the refrigerator full of food, for the clean water from your tap, for the grocery store with its thousands of options, for the ability to eat until you're satisfied, truly satisfied, in a way your ancestors never experienced. This isn't something to take for granted. It's a miracle of modern civilization. Second, awareness. Understanding why you crave certain foods helps you make better choices. You can recognize the craving for what it is, an evolutionary adaptation that's no longer serving you, and respond consciously rather than reflexively. You can create environments that work with your biology rather than against it, keeping tempting foods out of the house, planning meals in advance, building structures that support health even when your instincts are pushing you toward excess. Third, compassion. For yourself when you struggle, for others who are fighting the same battle. We're all dealing with this mismatch. We're all carrying bodies designed for a world that no longer exists. And judging people for gaining weight or struggling with food is judging them for being human, for having a biology that's doing exactly what it evolved to do. The paleo diet trend gets one thing right. It recognizes that modern processed foods are problematic, that eating closer to whole, unprocessed foods is generally healthier, but it gets the history wrong. It romanticizes a past that was brutal and short. It suggests that returning to ancestral eating patterns will solve modern health problems. But the reality is more complex. Our ancestors ate the way they did because they had no choice. And many of them died young, malnourished, suffering from deficiencies and diseases we've long since conquered. The solution isn't to go backward, it's to go forward with awareness, to use our modern knowledge of nutrition to provide our bodies with what they actually need, to create abundance that's nourishing rather than just caloric, to build food systems that serve health rather than just profit, to recognize the evolutionary drives that shape our eating behaviors and work with them rather than against them. You have access to something your ancestors never did, the ability to be truly satisfied, to eat a variety of nutritious foods, to feel full and nourished and safe, to go to sleep at night without hunger gnawing at you, to wake up knowing breakfast is available. This is extraordinary. This is worth protecting and celebrating, and it's worth recognizing for the gift it is. So tonight, as you drift off to sleep, maybe take a moment to appreciate your full stomach, your comfortable bed, your safe shelter, the fact that you don't have to spend tomorrow hunting and foraging just to survive. You're living a life that would seem impossibly luxurious to your Paleolithic ancestors, a life they sacrificed and suffered to make possible. They endured scarcity so that eventually, generations down the line, you wouldn't have to. And maybe, just maybe, understanding the reality of what they went through will help you make peace with your own body, with its cravings and its hunger signals and its tendency to store fat. It's just trying to keep you alive the only way it knows how, the way that worked for hundreds of thousands of years. It doesn't know that the rules have changed, that survival is no longer the daily struggle, so be patient with it. be kind to it, and be grateful that you live in a time when satisfaction is possible and starvation is not. Sleep well, dream of abundance, and wake up thankful that you'll never have to live a single day on a real caveman's diet. Because if tonight's journey has taught us anything, it's that you absolutely, definitely wouldn't last a day. And that's it. That's a day in the life of eating like a caveman. Not the Instagram version with grass-fed beef and organic almond butter. The real version. The one where you wake up starving and go to sleep hungry, where every meal is a gamble and nutritional deficiency is guaranteed, where food is never comforting, never satisfying, and always hard-won. You wouldn't have lasted. And honestly, neither would I. We started tonight by talking about the paleo diet, the wellness trend that promises you'll feel amazing if you just eat like your ancestors. And there's a kernel of truth buried in there. Whole foods are better than processed junk. Avoiding refined sugar is probably smart. Moving your body is important. But the idea that we should aspire to eat like Paleolithic humans, that we should romanticize their diet as some kind of nutritional ideal, that's fantasy, pure fantasy, built on a fundamental misunderstanding of what life was actually like 30,000 years ago. Your ancestors didn't eat paleo because it was healthy. They ate it because they had absolutely no other choice. They were surviving, not thriving. They were making it through each day despite their diet, not because of it, and the evidence is written in their bones. Stunted growth from childhood malnutrition, vitamin deficiencies causing skeletal deformities, dental disease from lack of oral care, shortened lifespans despite being physically active. These were not healthy people by any modern measure. They were resilient people enduring incredible hardship. And here's what we need to understand about that hardship. It shaped us. Every struggle they endured, every winter they barely survived, every meal they scraped together, it's all encoded in your biology right now. Your body is the product of hundreds of thousands of years of scarcity, of never having quite enough, of needing to store every possible calorie as fat because famine was always around the corner. This is why you crave high-calorie foods even when you've eaten enough, why you feel compelled to finish everything on your plate, why seeing food triggers the urge to eat even when you're not hungry. These aren't character flaws, they're survival mechanisms. Evolutionary adaptations that kept your ancestors alive through conditions that would break most modern humans in days. But we don't live in that world anymore. We live in a world of remarkable, unprecedented abundance, where food is available whenever you want it, where you can choose from thousands of options, where starvation is not a daily threat, and your Paleolithic body, with its Paleolithic instincts, doesn't know what to do with that abundance. So it does what it's always done. It stores, it craves, it pushes you to eat more because more might not be available later, except later never comes, the famine never arrives, and the adaptive trait becomes maladaptive. This is the fundamental challenge of modern eating. You're running ancient software in a new environment. Your hardware hasn't updated. Evolution works on timescales of tens of thousands of years, not decades. And the food environment has changed faster than biology can adapt. So you're left with cravings that made sense in the Paleolithic but lead to obesity and metabolic disease today. With hunger signals calibrated for scarcity, trying to operate in abundance. With a body that's designed to never feel satisfied, trying to navigate a world where satisfaction is constantly available. Understanding this changes everything. It reframes your relationship with food and with your body. You're not broken. You're not weak. You're not failing at eating right. You're just a human being with a human body, trying to navigate a mismatch between evolutionary design and modern reality. And that's hard. It's supposed to be hard, because nothing in your genetic history prepared you for this. So, what do we do with this knowledge? First, we practice gratitude, real, deep, meaningful gratitude for the abundance we have. When you open your refrigerator tonight and see food sitting there, ready to eat, remember what we talked about. Remember the hunger, the uncertainty, the constant struggle just to find enough calories to survive one more day. Your ancestors would have wept at the sight of your refrigerator. They would have thought it was heaven, and in a very real sense, it is. Second, we practice awareness. When you feel a craving, pause. Ask yourself if you're actually hungry or if your Paleolithic brain is just doing what it's designed to do, seeking more, preparing for scarcity that isn't coming. You can acknowledge the craving, understand where it comes from, and then choose consciously how to respond. You're not a slave to your biology. You're a human with a prefrontal cortex who can override instinct with intention. Third, we practice compassion for ourselves when we struggle, for others who are fighting the same battle. We're all carrying these ancient bodies. We're all dealing with drives that were adaptive once, but are problematic now. And judging yourself or others for responding to those drives is missing the point entirely. The struggle is real, the biology is powerful, and doing your best in the face of that is all anyone can ask. Let's talk about sleep for a moment, because everything we've discussed tonight connects back to sleep. Your ancestors slept poorly, constantly woken by hunger, by cold, by the need to stay alert for predators. They were chronically sleep deprived, and chronic sleep deprivation affects everything: metabolism, appetite regulation, immune function, emotional stability. They were trapped in a cycle where poor nutrition caused poor sleep, and poor sleep made nutritional challenges even harder to manage. You don't have to live that way. You can eat well, you can sleep in safety and comfort, you can wake up rested instead of exhausted. This is a gift, a precious, hard-won gift that came from generations of human innovation, agriculture, and civilization building. Your ancestors suffered so you wouldn't have to. They endured scarcity so that eventually, someday, their descendants could experience abundance. That's you. You're the fulfillment of their struggle. You're living the dream they couldn't even articulate. Is less than #0. 7# is greater than. So tonight, as you settle into your comfortable bed with your full stomach and your warm blankets and your safe shelter, take a moment to honor that, to recognize the extraordinary privilege of not having to hunt and forage and struggle just to make it through one more day, to appreciate the fact that you can simply exist without survival being a full-time job. This is what all that evolutionary hardship was for. This moment, this comfort, this peace. The paleo diet trend will come and go. Wellness fads always do. But the truth remains, you're not designed for the world you live in. You're designed for a world that no longer exists. And navigating that mismatch with awareness, compassion, and gratitude is the real work. Not trying to recreate a brutal past, but honoring it while building a healthier future. Before you drift off, I want you to try something. Think about one meal you'll eat tomorrow. Just one. And when you eat it, really pay attention. Notice the variety, the flavor, the fact that it's there, readily available, requiring no hours of hunting or foraging. Notice that you can eat until you're satisfied, truly satisfied. in a way your ancestors never experienced, and feel grateful. Not guilty, not anxious, just grateful. Because here's the final truth. Your body is doing its best with instructions written for a different world. It's trying to keep you alive using strategies that worked for hundreds of thousands of years. It doesn't know the rules have changed. So work with it, feed it well, rest it fully, treat it with the kindness and respect it deserves for carrying you through each day. It's the only body you have, and it's more remarkable than you probably give it credit for. Thank you for spending this time with me tonight, for taking this journey back to a world that was harsh and hungry and hard. I hope it's given you a new perspective, a new appreciation, maybe even a new relationship with food and your body. If you enjoyed this, I'd love it if you'd like the video and subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment letting me know what surprised you most about the reality of Paleolithic eating. I read every single one, and your thoughts always make these videos better. Now dim those lights a little more, get comfortable, and let yourself drift. You're safe, you're fed, you're living in the most abundant time in human history. And somewhere, across the vast expanse of time, your Paleolithic ancestors are looking at you and thinking, we did it. We survived long enough that our descendants don't have to. Sleep well, you've earned it. Good night.